David Byrd is an award-winning photographer and Photoshop artist. He's a husband and devoted father to 2 very young children. David has mastered many genres of photography, and in this episode, he allows us some insight into his newest endeavor, a boudoir photography brand, Legend, by David Byrd. From his roots as a young child with a love for living in his imagination to owning several creatively successful photography businesses in 3 states, David takes us on a journey explaining how his roots in theater have helped him not only to photograph, but tell layered stories with his images. His unique ability to convey his vision to the models and artistic vision that utilizes performance to influence the storytelling of his final product truly make him one of a kind in a very saturated market of photographers. David shares his fears and anxieties about fatherhood, as well as the massive setbacks he's faced in the world of photography, and what those setbacks have taught him about the profession and himself. This is Those Who Do Boudoir Photography with David Byrd.
Go with me on this for just a second.
And I'll give you a little of this, and a little of that, and a little more of this.
Get off YouTube, you piece of shit.
Have you seen this yet?
Negative.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? It's almost like a motorcycle club.
Ooh, I like.
For I got an early birthday present yesterday. Jenny gave me what my daughters are affectionately calling my Dean coat. Looks like a Dean Winchester jacket from Supernatural. Nice. Like, you're Dean. I'm like, I wish I was Dean.
What's his face was just on, I can't think of his name, one of the leads in that show.
Either Jensen Ackles or Jared Padalecki.
Jensen Ackles, I think. He was on Smallville?
Yeah, he played. Yeah, who did he play on Smallville? He played Green Arrow, maybe?
Yeah. No. Oh, no. He was in the first season of Smallville. And then he was Lana's love interest. And then he left the show for Supernatural.
Oh, I thought he played like one of the Justice League folks.
No, that was a different dude.
Oh, okay.
Different dude. Tall, blonde dude that everybody can't help themselves, just like your vampire guy with his eyes. Everybody can't help but love the dude.
Yeah. I want to, that's who I want to be someday. I want to be the guy that, I mean, I know it's not realistic, but it'd be a lot cooler if it was.
You know what? You never know what comes after this life.
Yeah, I'm going to be reincarnated as a snail, and somebody's sure going to love snails. That's got to be what it is.
No, I straight up think that it's a possibility. I don't actually think this is what happens. At least I hope it isn't, because then I would spend, this is probably what purgatory is. When you die, you go into a room and there's essentially like a Apple store attendant that just walks you around and is like, what new life would you like? Because I have to believe that there are human beings at some point that have just had so much fucking shit that they're like, you know what? I want to go back as a goddamn snail, because that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing any shit. I'm just going to be a drop of rain.
Well, if you get to pick, clearly this is my first run.
No, this could be your origination. This is your first go at it. And then,
or previously I was a snail that was like, I want a life that's not much faster than this one. So here's what we're going to ease ourselves into.
Maybe there's some kind of punishment system. Like if you're like, oh, you've had it that badly, so you want to be a snail. Okay. When you come back though, after somebody steps on you, you got to,
Oh, I guarantee you my life is more than just anecdotal evidence that there is indeed a punishment system. Guarantee it. Nice. Oh, okay. You got your coffee and everything? You good?
Yeah.
You good? You
Cheers.
comfy? Okay, awesome.
Cheers.
Yeah, this is the better way to do this, I think.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that when you're at altitude, alcohol affects you significantly differently, and I completely forgot about that. So
yeah.
I didn't, to be honest, I don't think I drank that much. It was just between that and a little bit of anxiety and emotion and everything else. By the time and of course, my house is like 6 minutes from here.
Oh, nice.
And halfway home, I'm tipsy, and I'm like, I shouldn't be driving. And halfway home, I all of a sudden go, my God, what if I die? And then like anxiety just ramped up. And I was like, so by the time I walked in the house, Bethany's like, okay. And I'm like, I am drunk and I have to go downstairs and die.
Sometimes I'm like, what if I die? And I just get way calmer. I'm just like, well, I guess it's out of my hands now.
yeah, there you go. That's a nice way to practice mindfulness.
So that everyone knows, David is in Denver. You live in Aurora, right?
Yeah.
Wayne's World. No, that's Illinois. Nice. Yeah, but so I have not been in a situation in Colorado where I drank more than like a beer or two. So it didn't like. What I will tell you is I have learned that altitude sickness is a real thing, and you have to be real careful with your body because it can make your body do weird stuff. Like there's certain bodily functions you can't trust when you have altitude sickness. I get real dizzy at about anything above a 13er. We got up to the Alpine Lodge in Rocky Mountain, and it was about close to 14. No, I think that's 12. Like, so it must be above like a 10 or 11. That was at 12, and I was just dizzy. Like I was just like, oh God, I don't like it up here. I can't catch my breath. Well, I'm fat, but I also can't catch my breath, and I don't like it up here.
When I was in high school, our technical director for the drama program, he was very much like a surrogate father to a lot of folks. He would take a group of students to the mountains in Colorado over the summer for like a 4-day excursion of, what you carry with you is what you have kind of thing.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
I mean, we rode Jeeps and went into that's how I fell in love with these mountains. Yeah. And it was the most peaceful, tranquil experience of my life. You're camping out and, in the wild and
like
doing old ghost.
Why is Zach carrying a flat screen? Hey, what I carry with me is what it takes.
This is like 1993. But,
God, a 32-inch CRT.
yeah, exactly. With a very long extension cord. And you would go into the mountains at probably 12, 13,000 feet somewhere, probably 12. And then as we started going further and further up, our entry point was a town called Lake City. And then we would go up to Engineer Pass, Cinnamon Pass, old ghost towns of mining camps.
Sure.
And like they would still have like old rusted bins of some of the rubble. And like you could pick up pieces of rock that had flecks of silver and so forth in it and gold. It just wasn't enough in it to justify keeping it. And we would climb, like the third day, once we got acclimated, we would climb to a 14,000 foot peak called Hanson's Peak. And we would camp in the basin and then climb. And it took, 3-4 hours to go up and then much less time to come down. Long story short. Yeah, very much less time. When we climbed, there was I had a little bit of a near-death experience because the last little leg of it, we went up through this little ravine on a sheer rock face, but there was like a water had carved through the sheer face to let us go up this little channel.
There was a what? And come again one more time. There was a what carved?
A channel. So
okay,
like water
did you say waterhead?
No.
I was like, David, you can't say that.
No.
Okay.
Water channeled down and made it's essentially a path for you to go up. And I was the last one to go up in the line, and I slid and started sliding down and like would have fallen horribly. So I caught myself, everything's fine. Like I dug my arms into the side, so I tore the shit out of my arms and then got all the way to the top. So then I said, I'm not doing this. I'm not going these crazy ways back down. There was a snowbank that went all the way down. And so I said, I'm just going to ride the snowbank. And again, I have no knowledge of mountains. And Jay, our guide and our surrogate dad, so to speak, he's watching from down below. So he's like the size of a little tiny ant. And I see him running, doing this like that. And I just take a leap and jump and slide all the way down. And it takes me the better part of like 30, 40 minutes to get down, while the rest of the crew had to take a couple hours to walk down. So when I get there, I'm so proud of myself. And I'm walking to the campsite, and he is furious and is like, do you have any idea how stupid it is what you just did? And I said, no, I hurt myself going up, so I would come back down. And he said, first off, mountains are not perfect 45-degree angles. So that snow had packed up, and you could have fallen through the snow, and you would be dead by the time we found you. And number two, you just went down 1,000 feet like that. So good luck. And a few hours later, I was laying in a pickup truck, holding myself, going, I want to die. Like, it was so bad. And I was so sick. And they had had an experience like this years before when he was younger. And they had to actually take somebody off the mountain in the middle of the night because he had the bends and he couldn't process. And so they had to get him down.
You'd think he would have covered that with you prior.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. We went back in 2015 when we were much older. It was one last hurrah because he had to have knee surgery and he had worked hard for a year to lose some weight so that he could climb it one last time. And when we were there at the same place, I pointed to a snowbank and I'm like, you could have educated, a 17-year-old about physics and math. I know. I was like, dude, and I'm lucky to be alive, and it's your fault if I would have died. And he was like, that's why I was freaking out, because how am I going to tell your parents? Sorry. Anyway.
I killed your baby.
Yeah, my parents would have been.
That's actually, hey, that's a good way to move into how we normally start these. All right. So obviously anything that you do, have done, will do further on in your life is strongly informed by who you are as a person, which ergo is strongly informed by how you were raised, what your home life was like, what your hobbies were and stuff. So that's where we have to start. So we have to time travel a little bit and learn about little Davy. Little Davy back when he was 5, right? So let's talk a little bit. And I always pick 5. I don't know why I pick 5. I think that's where a lot of people's formative memories begin, is when they're about 5 years old. So, I mean, and I should preface this by saying David and I have known each other for 25 years. So, one, when I make fun of him, it's okay.
Very okay. We've been doing this since day one. 2,
I'm sure he is going to say mean things to me later, and it will balance out. But I find that sometimes when we're in the same room together, like when we've been at comic book conventions and stuff, doing photography or doing whatever we were doing there, we would start in on each other, and people would be like, "Oh my God, these two! What are they? This is not okay." It's like, trust me, it's okay. We both give as well as we take. So, disclaimer.
It's that joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that joy of that awkward social situation where it happens so fast that the other people around are like, this is escalating rather quickly. Oh my gosh. Wow, guys, calm down. And we're like, no, you don't understand. Like this is, shorthand.
Are we going to see a murder? I think we're going to see a murder.
What's it like when an Ewok attacks a real human being? Well, we're about to find out.
Nipchuck.
It's okay, Yub Nub. Go back and get a pretzel, Yub Nub. Go.
Ooh, pretzel.
It's $27.50, but they're wonderful. Go.
So soft, so not warm.
Yeah, not at all.
That's the first time I ever had a $7 draft beer. Was at a comic book convention.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth it.
No, I had to get a credit card to get some chicken tenders and fries. And I was like, this is ridiculous.
God, I had to sell a kidney. So that being said, now that that's out there, we know that later when things sound like they're getting bloody, they're really not. So David starts out 5 years old. You were born in Indiana, right?
Correct.
Right. In the bustling metropolis known as Indiana. So Davy's born, the youngest of how many?
4.
And what's the breakdown, boys and girls?
So 3 boys, 1 girl. And the next one in line from me is 9 years older than me. So when I was born, I was called a blessed event by our pastor of our town, because and partially so because my mother had a hell of a time having me. And there was a period where right toward the end of her pregnancy, they told her that you need to prepare. She had gotten blood transfusions and so forth, that you need to prepare that the baby will not live more than a couple of years, and that will be horribly deformed and all these other things, because there was all these issues that she had.
I feel like you're just teasing me now. I feel
No.
I feel like you're following up on what I just said, and you're like, how bad will this get?
No, I generally like to be peaceful until provoked, much like an Ewok. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm cool. I'm one with your people. I'm just much taller. However, no. And so when I was born, it was a God, because this is the late 70s, and imaging technology, all those kinds of things, they had no idea.
Sure.
And so my parents were literally preparing for a catastrophe, especially getting pregnant so late in their lives after having 3 kids.
How old were they when you were born?
38.
That's not that old, David.
Well, but at the time, and especially think about it, they got married when they were 18. They had their first child when they were 21, I think.
Sure.
Or even 20. And their third child was 9 years old. So
Right.
to have a baby at 38 when like you're done with all the baby stuff, like you've been done for a long time.
You're preaching to the choir, David. You're preaching to the choir.
I have a beautiful 2.5-year-old boy, and I have a 6-month-old little girl that steals my heart, and I'm 46 years old. So, yeah, and talk about tired. Yeah.
David, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and my grandson spent the night last night.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When I have grandkids, if God willing, I'm still alive and not a snail at that point, then I will commiserate as I'm sitting in the hospital getting a hip replaced. So when I was born and came out, everything was normal and fine, and it was I was a blessed event. But I was also a mistake. My parents did not intend on having me. They worked at a glass factory, opposite shifts, because that was like the major factory that had come to this little town, and so everybody got jobs there. But they were also gospel singers. So they had records, they had a bus. My aunts and uncles, they would go sing on the weekends and sing at different churches. And they were, and very much true, they were in demand. They were called the Southern Gospel Singers. And churches would call and get a hold of them, and they would go. And my father insisted that they don't get paid. The church could, make a donation, but he would not accept money. And so a lot of, the old bus that they bought and publishing their records, it was all self-published. They would have, my mother would make like 40 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that they would eat over the weekend, and like, some potato chips and some fresh vegetables. That was it, because they were funding most of this on their own. They would give the records away for free. Like their whole idea was that we're in service of God, so that we can't accept profit.
I don't know that I knew this.
And so it was one that not only identified to all of us as children how important religion was, and organized Christian Western religion was to my upbringing, my family, but ultimately it set a tone with me that as a human being, not just to fulfill religious doctrine, but just as a good human being, like give more than you take, and don't be afraid to what is called now in at least my industry of sweat equity. Don't be afraid to do hard work and donate it, because that reciprocal will come at some point. You have to have faith and trust that it will. Which, this was in the 70s. Now, in this day and age, I don't have a lot of faith in the human society that they're going to reciprocate kindly toward anything that is given to them.
They'll reciprocate. They'll reciprocate, all right.
Right.
And I'll give you a little of this, and a little of that, and a little more of this.
Yeah.
Is my house on fire? Maybe.
And you've earned it because you're entitled.
Yeah.
You think you're entitled. And you said earlier that you chose the age of 5 because that's like formative memories. And it's 100% true, because I don't I have one image in my mind that I can recall when I was 4.5 years old, when we were leaving our house in Indiana to move to Texas, where my father had started his new career. Like you do in the 70s, he answered an ad in the paper that was to come to like the local, Best Western to meet a man named Wayne Ahart, who had started an insurance company in Texas. And he was hired, and they had just gotten the opportunity to start selling insurance in Indiana. So he was looking for agents to go door to door selling life insurance. And my father did it part-time for a short amount of time, realized that it was something he was good at. And Wayne realized that too, and started grooming my dad immediately and said, you have a potential here. So I want you to move to Texas. I want you to start working full-time and see where you go over a few months. So we moved. My parents made the decision. The whole family moves. I have one vision of, we were told as kids to walk around the house to make sure that we hadn't left anything behind. and I had found this like piece of paper that was all my memory is it was orange. It was probably just debris that flew in, with the wind. But I proudly took it to my dad and said, I found something. And he like, oh, right on. But, make sure we don't lose this. And he put it into the U-Haul and we went. And the U-Haul truck was called U-Haul It at the time. That was the original name of the company. And then they decided to drop the it. My memories begin when I was 5 in Texas. So
also selfishly, that's like, I pick 5 because, I saw Return of the Jedi between 4 and 5. And that is one of my first, most vivid memories. So like, I'm like, well, obviously everybody else feels the same way, right? They all had a movie that they saw when they were between 4 and 5, because 84. So yeah, I would have been 4. But so I'm like, I need to pick a touchstone and assume that everybody else has the same. Now I got button hooked on one because one of my buddies was like, yeah, I don't have any memories before I was 7. And I was like, oh, cool. Is there a reason for that? And then he dropped like a truth bomb on me about it was the most traumatic year of his life. And I was like, you're an asshole. Right. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. And I should have known what he was doing. And he set me up for it and I lost. But good, made for good TV, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jedi is one of my earliest memories of seeing a movie was seeing Jedi because when we had moved to Texas when I was 5. And then I think we were there for a total of 3 years. And then we moved to Iowa, which is what I would consider my home state because we lived there the longest. And it was the either late spring or early summer. We went to a small theater on the south side because it was the last theater in town that had one tiny little house, one tiny little theater that had Jedi. And my dad, I'd seen it 100 times, but one of the earliest memories I can recall of seeing a movie was going and seeing that with him. And watching it yet again, big popcorn, big pop, and and just enjoying that journey of Star Wars. So it's so funny that a lot of our identity of our age group is so much identified by Star Wars and when you saw it.
Well, and it was the very first movie I ever saw in an indoor theater. The first movie that I ever saw in a theater was, I believe, like Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke at a drive-in. Like I remember having footy pajamas and like there being like a blanket on the ground and like we went to sleep while my parents watched it and stuff. But it's just like, as far as like an actual formative movie, that it would have been Jedi. And then right after that, Ghostbusters. And then Land Before Time, strangely. But that was pretty much my arc.
Yeah.
Like laser guns, dinosaurs.
With laser guns. That's a movie. That's a pitch.
That was what they had that. You remember Dino Riders?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Where they wore all the like bionic crap. And
yeah.
Speak to them like telepathically and shit. Yeah.
So we just made a jest and joke, but that's probably straight up how some dude was like watching Land Before Time and went, what about laser beams? And then
he was probably also watching Up in Smoke, to be honest, to get there from there.
Up in Smoke was one of his formative films, which is why he was, brought. Anyway.
Yeah. Did you see? So I saw Star Wars out of order. Because A New Hope, they were always showing on CBS for the CBS special presentation with the
yeah.
And so they would show it, and obviously you'd see it with commercials and stuff. They weren't showing Empire. And then Jedi comes out, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a new Star Wars. And people are like, there's another one, right? Jedi. I was like, no, there's this one that we see on TV, and then there's this new one. They're like, no, there's a whole story that happens in between these two movies. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, Darth Vader's Luke Skywalker's dad. I'm like, you sons of bitches. Like, I didn't see Empire until I was probably like 9 or 10.
Oh, wow.
Because we didn't have cable. We were broke as fuck.
Gotcha.
And we didn't get a VCR. I mean, my dad had a VCR, but like, you know how VHS came out really weird. Like it would be years after a movie came out in the cinema before you could see a movie on VHS. And then all the different production houses released them at different times and different ways. And we started out with one movie rental place in town at the Regent Theater, which the Regent Theater was a actual performance theater. Then they changed it over to a movie theater, and then they had a rental business in like the lobby, and then they changed it back to a performance. So it's a performance theater now. But that's the first place you could go to rent. And like my aunt and uncle had a VCR, and then my dad got one after them. And I mean, we're talking like clunk, with actual mechanical buttons and load from the top. And so we didn't really have anything that I could watch it on until after my folks split up. My folks split up when I was 8. So I didn't see Empire until way after Jedi and way out of order. I mean, they were showing, I think actually the first time I saw Jedi might have been on HBO.
Oh, wow.
No, or not Jedi, sorry, Empire. It might have been on HBO. Yeah. When it would have been partially scrambled probably because my dad don't pay for premium channels. Steal them some bitches.
Nice.
Yeah. Had torrenting been a thing in 1982, my dad would be in prison. He was always all about like, let's see how we can get this entertainment for free.
Yeah.
I knew how to unscramble a cable channel by the time I was like 9. It was ridiculous.
Valuable tools. And again, to a degree, it was valuable back in the time for that kind of technology.
You just leave it on the channel till the filter burns through. Right. And then once the filter burns through, you can tweak it through. I mean, what? Never mind. Going on. This isn't about me, David. It's about you. So you get down to Texas. You're only there for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whole family moves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now your next sibling, 9 years older, is a brother, right?
Yeah. And then sisters in between those two.
So you've got a brother who's 9 years older than you, which really doesn't do you a whole lot of good socially because it's not like you're going to meet people. You've now moved to your 3rd state and you're probably about 7, 8 years old, right?
Yep.
You land in Iowa. Like what does that look like for you? You now moved to a 3rd state in 3 years, basically. You've upended your life. Like how does little Davy, has anybody ever called you Davy in your entire life?
A few times. Davy Jones, like
they didn't live, but they called me Davy.
When I was young, I imitated an Ewok and just poked them right in the nads with a spear.
He called me Davy once. That's a movie I haven't seen in a long time. Johnny Dangerously. Phenomenal film. So what does that look like once you land in Iowa? And the only reason I'm picking on landing in Iowa is because it is your quote unquote home state. Yeah. And this is where you're going to start to develop into who you are, essentially. Yeah. So you land in Iowa. What does your life look like? What is your day to day? Your parents stayed together your whole life, all the way up into and through your father's death. Yeah. So you had a traditional nuclear family. Yeah. But your childhood was not, I wouldn't call it traditional because you had, your hobbies were very specific. Yeah. And in your life. So to tell us a little bit about that, about your childhood and how you interacted in the things that you like to do.
Well, so, I mean, my next brother in line being 9 years older, I didn't have a playmate, built in the family kind of thing. And my siblings, we were all encouraged very much by my parents to be very close. My eldest brother, I don't really recall a lot of memories with him when I was young because he started working for my father as soon as he got out of high school and built his career in that same industry. There's this great series on Netflix called High Score, and it's reviews video games, but the history of video games from the perspective of not just consoles, but the arcades. And it's done by a documentary group called Great Big Story that they're actually now finished. They kind of set up with this goal to make a certain set of documentaries. And it is the most cinematic, moving documentary I've ever watched. And I watch it all the time. I rewatch it constantly because it's wonderful. And interviewing some of these people who have defined video games and created this entire industry. They interview Yoshitaka Amano, who is an artist who he worked on Speed Racer and so forth in Japan. Then he created all the artwork for the original Final Fantasy and still to this day does. And in this show, High Score, when they interview him, he essentially opens and says that he lives in a world of imagination. Like he believes he's a part of that realm and not the realm of reality. And it hit me like a truck the first time I heard it because it was the perfect way to identify very much my entire life until the past 3 or 4 years of being like, I always lived in a world of make-believe. So I didn't need friends. Like I could find, a smooth, polished rock from a river or creek and, a really cool old stick. And that became my sword and power stone. And I didn't need people around me. I constantly was either drawing or writing stories or creating stories and just living vicariously through my own imagination, or then what, external sources like Star Wars that would inspire it and then make it want to go even further. So when we moved to Iowa, I had a couple of friends that were like my one or two best friends, and that was it. I didn't care about being popular. I didn't care about needing to fit in because it wasn't even a factor in my head. It was school, and being at school was to get the work done so I could go home and create and play, and not to sit and play Nintendo, because Nintendo didn't come out until 86 or 87. And then when that happened, it was all over.
Did you have an Atari?
We did. We had a 2600, and I played Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, I think. But and the Atari was, of course, it was amazing until Nintendo came out. And I remember playing Super Mario Brothers for the first time in a stand-up arcade at a bowling alley, and it was in Winterset, Iowa. And we drove down there because the bowling alley had a buffet, and they had a seafood night. And naturally, my parents were buffet aficionados.
Oh, God.
And so we went down there. And of course, I got as many chicken tenders and French fries and mac and cheese and mashed potatoes that that I could eat. And then there was this game, and I asked for a quarter, and I played it. And like, I just became mesmerized. And like, that's all I wanted to do was to play Nintendo. And of course, I built models and all that.
I'm surprised you didn't grow up with trust issues as a child if your parents are willing to take you to a seafood buffet at a bowling alley in Iowa.
It was a buffet that had a bowling alley connected to it, so that was the idea. And I'm pretty sure it still exists today. I don't know if the buffet still exists, but the bowling alley does.
Oh, it makes me so nervous. Seafood buffet in Iowa. Just that fish has to come a long way unless it's catfish or walleye.
Right. Yeah. But no, I mean, so I didn't really need friends because my friends, they couldn't access the world that I lived in, and I didn't need them to access it. I was quite fine on my own.
Now, the friends that you did have, were they creatives? Did they like to make believe and stuff like that?
Yeah. One of my childhood friends, that is the one that always pops into my mind, my earliest childhood friend that I can recall, his name is Glenn. And we would go during the summer in Iowa, which now being a father, I've remarked to my wife a few times how incredibly dangerous it was for us as children, because my parents would just be like, we would say, oh, we're going to the creek that's like a 25-minute walk from the house. And my parents were like, here's some snacks, go, and have fun. And we're climbing up and down 10-foot ravines and all this if I would have fallen and broken an arm, it would have taken ages. Well, actually, I did fall and break an arm when I was a kid, but it was right across the street, my parents' house. But anyway, Glenn and I would draw Superman comics. We were really into the Transformers and Superman, and we would read comics, draw our own, write stories, and we would go on adventures into creeks and in the woods and find, the sword of power and all that kind of stuff. And he was a person that lived in my world of make-believe very easily because he had one of his own.
I think that's important because, like, for me as a kid, I struggled to make friends because I was so anxious and I didn't want to go stay at people's houses, and the things that I was into weren't really the thing. And, a lot of kids were into Star Wars, but not like into Star Wars, like there was like, I needed help. I should have had an intervention. like, hey, look, man, toys are cool. Video games are cool, but you know what else is cool? Someday seeing a girl naked. Like, you should probably set your sights just a little bit higher on socializing, because if you don't, things are going to get, junior high is going to be absolutely brutal. And I didn't really have anybody. I mean, I had people that they're into video games or they're into Star Wars a little bit, but nobody who really had like the passion for it that I did. So, and we grew up in a weird time. Like, it wasn't cool to be a nerd.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, it wasn't cool to like you would get beat up and teased and I'm like, you kids, you emo brats now, like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, you can find your people. Like, every group has a group now. It didn't always used to be that way. Like, the kids that were stuck on the outside and on the fringe when we were kids, like, nobody would let them in. I got chased home from school because I also had a smart mouth. So, like, I mean, that was my fault. Okay. Like, shut up. Just because you can make some people laugh doesn't mean other people will appreciate them shits. Okay. So you got to be careful. And I didn't know that. So it's important to have a people And I think it's good that you did. I think that would be a super powerful thing to reinforce that creativity is a good thing. Because especially in Iowa, like to be a creative was a weird place to live when we were kids. Like, you know, I mean, a lot of kids were in band, a lot of kids did like choir and stuff. But, you know, if you're a guy in choir, people would say things about you, you know, and they would make assertions, which now in 2024, I'm like, yeah, say whatever you want to say. I don't care. Like, I'm comfortable enough. Like, I will look at a dude and be like, that's a hot dude. Like, I don't have that, but we weren't raised like that in Iowa. You know, you didn't have the information to say, look, man, there's nothing wrong with any of this. So by insulating yourself with a people, it's just such a powerful thing to have. We grew up in a really weird time.
Yeah.
Everybody had very strong opinions about what boys were supposed to be and what girls were supposed to be, while still being incredibly insecure about themselves.
Yeah.
Like stupid insecure. So did you find, what was your school life like then? Did you find having those people was a safety net, or were there issues? What was junior high like for you?
The microcosm to me of what you're talking about, taking it, you know, a further focus to it, was I use this term loosely, but I had a lot of friends, and we would play Ghost in the Graveyard, or, you know, hide and seek, and we would share what Transformers we got in that week and that kind of thing. Even the popular kids were still into some of those things. They just also their imagination would take off on a football field or a baseball field. I had very few friends. You know, I had friends that I would play Legos with, and we, you know, share our Transformers and maybe read a comic book or two. But to them, it was just this cool thing. I had very few friends that we could read the comic, and we would sit down and as 7-year-olds and creatively talk about storylines and fan fiction, so to speak, of these characters, and then draw it or live it and be in that realm of reality that, you know, Amano mentions in High Score that was so impactful to me. Junior high, do you remember the 80s movie License to Drive with Corey Feldman and Corey Haim?
Unfortunately, I do, because it was one of 3 movies I had on VHS that had been taped off of a movie channel. So I saw License to Drive and them having Mercedes in their trunk for, I probably saw it 100 times. I don't need a BMW. I've got a Mercedes. Like, the movie was terrible. That, Inner Space, and Star Wars: A New Hope on loop. On fucking loop. So yes, David, yes, I do remember License to Drive.
So 2 things then. Inner Space, I absolutely love that film.
Yeah.
Robert Picardo, it just steals that film immediately, and I love watching it. But no wonder, and I mean this sincerely, no wonder you are really good at comedy, because Martin Short is hilarious in that film.
Oh, he's really, really good at it.
And such a great, like, physical comedic performer. Anyway, License to Drive, Heather Graham was my first crush, and kind of identified the archetype of what a heterosexual female relationship that I wanted so badly was.
Comatose in a trunk?
No, the performer, blonde and blue eyes. So my point, thank you. Can I swear on your show? Yes, I can.
Yes,
asshole.
You can.
Because I'm using this as a memory to answer your question, okay? When I got to junior high,
you said groomed earlier, and now you're talking about how your perfect female archetype has been basically roofied.
Wow, and you brought up trust issues with buffets and seafood at bowling alleys. Maybe I need to call my therapist. Can we go? So anyway, when I got to junior high, I had watched movies like License to Drive that gave me when I started understanding that I'm going to have to fit into a higher social battleground here when I got into junior high. And I remember watching movies like License to Drive going, okay, well, you know, the underdogs in that movie, so to speak, can potentially win in the end, right? I kind of thought that was a reality that maybe could happen. And the reason why I bring it up is because, to me, I didn't like the idea of going, well, I'm an underdog and a nerd, so I've got to pretend to be somebody else. And there were a lot of 80s movies that essentially told you that, right? But then would try to button it up at the end by saying, well, you essentially, Dorothy Gale, I don't have to go, if I want a world of make-believe, I don't have to go any further in my own backyard.
The hero is inside you all along.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but the identity that I locked onto, or the path that I locked onto to navigate junior high, was I don't need to be anybody else. I just need to be me. And if somebody's going to, and not, if you're going to love me for who I am. No, it was simply, I don't want to change, but I'm not going to go out of my way to, shout from the rooftops, screw you, I'm not going to change either, because that was just stupid. And I watched people be that. And I'm like, you care more about, strutting your feathers than just being who you are and just living your life. And in junior high, no, it did not. I did not, I didn't go to the mixers. I didn't go to those things. And not because screw it, nobody wants to go with me. I just didn't care. But when friends would get together after school and hang out at the playground or whatever, I would go and play and have a good time and then leave early because I wanted to go home to play video games or write story. The video game Final Fantasy came out when I was in junior high and my 8th grade year. And I would play it. It was the first RPG that I ever played. I would play for 2 or 3 hours, and then I would spend double that time writing a story of the characters that I had and flesh. So, you go from one castle in the game to, you go from a town to the castle and you defeat the first boss, right? I would write the story of what happened as we went through the woods and these imps jumped out and blah, 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 blah. And the healer did this and the fire mage did that. Every bit of intellectual property that I could engage with, I used as a catalyst to just run and create stories. And
every intellectual property that I could indeed steal from.
No, it was a catalyst that's inspired so many ideas and made me want to just constantly create. And it reinforced to me that world was not safer or anything like that at all. That world was more enjoyable than the world and the reality that I lived around.
See, and I envy you because I so badly wanted to be accepted. I wanted girls to like me. I wanted the popular people to think I was funny. I knew I wasn't I always I've lived my life this way, unfortunately, almost all 45 years of it, in that I will do these things where I'll almost. So 7th grade year, I went out for football. Almost. I got the jersey and then I watched the video. They show you a video that talks about how you might die. You could get a weird fracture of your femur that will kill you. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's not safe. I'm out. Yeah. In the interest of safety, I'm a smart person and I understand science. So in the interest of safety, I will keep statistics instead because I think, I have something to offer this world. Meanwhile, I was just scared. I was a scared, anxious kid. So that was kind of I would sort of be around the popular athletic kids, but ultimately I was their bitch, and, I would talk to girls on the phone, but I would never be like, hey, I really like you, because I'm like, oh, she's going to stop talking to me if she realizes that we're not, I don't want to just be, so that never materialized until my sophomore year in high school. It never even turned into a possibility of a thing. But I wanted it so bad. And so it would make me so uncomfortable and unhappy. And I would stress and agonize over oh, this girl, is she talking to me because she likes me or is she talking to me because she thinks I'm her shopping buddy, and it's and because I would never make that step to find out, I was just always nervous about it. Right. So to be comfortable enough in your skin that you just look, I am enjoying the things that I'm doing and I'm going to continue to enjoy them. I'm very envious that you were able to live your life that way. And it's still something I can still learn to do today. I feel like that's a lesson I could take from you even now is that, look, there are plenty of things I like to do. I just need to enjoy them and not worry about whether they're successful or productive or who cares that other people think they're funny. If I'm laughing and having fun with it and it's not hurting anybody else, that should be enough. But that's always been a struggle for me. So I find it oddly comforting that someone with similar interests as a kid was able to take it the other way and just be like, look, man, this is my skin. I'm wearing it and I'm totally fine with that. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. If something else comes from it, that's great. That was a long way for me to get back around to good on you. And I'm happy for you that was your experience. Because that should be everybody's and it's not.
And so what I find fascinating is that you just said something that I think is, it means a lot to me and I appreciate it, but I also feel like I have to be honorable. I have to tell the truth that I have lived a majority of my life from that mindset of, I don't care if my creative endeavors make money or not. What I wanted when I was a kid was, of course, again, when I say kid, like single digits and then early double digits. I wanted to live my world of make-believe. I wanted to go to Hollywood and be an actor, because to me, that was the perfect way to take everything that was in my brain and put it out into the world. But the impact is, growing up, I was a Star Wars and Star Trek fan. Go with me on this for just a second. So both of them, Star Wars was a story to me that was about adventure. These heroes going off to vanquish the evil bad guy. And much to my parents' chagrin, I wanted to be Darth Vader. I did not want to be Luke Skywalker, Han Solo. Didn't care. I wanted, because Vader, instantly as a kid, I was like, I was a little scared of him when he chokes the dude in the first opening minutes.
And then I realized I was into that.
So grooming, into choking, like seafood buffets. Do you want to go get some seafood? As I put on a black
yes,
glove. But yeah, I do too. So anyway, Star Wars was one where it was adventure, and it was the perfect outlet for me to be able to live that fantasy in my head. Star Trek, I immediately saw as an ensemble group of actors telling these stories. And so it opened my idea that I could do this career as an actor and get to tell these stories that are like Star Wars. And I loved them both equally. But I knew early on, when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be like George Lucas. I wanted to make a mark on the world. I knew very young that there was something special inside of my mind that I could offer and make an impact that would last well beyond my death. That was very much reinforced by my father, that your modus operandi of life was you got to go out there and make a mark on the world. His methodologies and the way to get to it was vastly different from mine, but that's something that I wanted. So I appreciate and am grateful that you see that as who I am. But now ever since I got into photography, you said to me just recently, you made a joke to me personally about nuking my career from orbit. And I have done that a few times, which Aliens, great film. It's the only, I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it. They can bill me. That's the best. That and get away from her, you bitch. Anyway, I have torpedoed my career and nuked it from orbit a couple of times because once I got into this industry, I got so paralyzed by anxiety and fear of the mentality that I cannot take a step forward toward any creative endeavor that I have. I would have the same passion and the same drive to do it, but I would not take the step because now it requires resources that we don't have. And my wife and I have to be very careful how I take these steps. And I started my career in photography very boldly with all the confidence and inspiration in the world. I knew very little about photography, but I knew about cinematography. And to me, they were the same. They were just one little picture out of a moving story. And I saw the opportunity to make money and a career, and I wanted to do that. And my intro to photography, I'm probably jumping ahead and I apologize, but my intro to photography was also my introduction to leaving corporate America, and the harder you worked, the more money you made, which was what my father did. And at the height of my first job, where I was a real estate photographer, you would get assigned properties, you contact the agent, you set up the booking. During the summer when we lived in Chicago, when I had this job, we didn't shoot on Sundays because they would do open house. So from Monday to Saturday, I could shoot 8 listings a day. And my average that I would make was about $45 a listing. So you can do the arithmetic. I was making amazing money as a photographer. And I became a preferred photographer by a lot of the agents because I had that cinematic style. And I didn't know the rule of thirds, or I didn't know how to categorize the idea of rule of thirds. I just did it. I wasn't formally taught. So to me, I'm making all this money as a photographer. This is great. Let's start a business. And then I can pinpoint it. There was this single moment very early on in our career where there was this great opportunity where it was essentially a high volume opportunity of a lot of students coming in to get pictures, potentially. And we were hurting for money. We had just moved, my wife and I, and I proudly told everybody, including my parents, this is my big break, and we'll make the money, and that'll propel the business forward. And projecting numbers up into the $100,000 mark, and we made $50. And I lost that $50 because I paid kids to go around trying to bring in the students. It was a big drama convention, and there was like 2,000 kids in the school at that one day. And I had
so you're foreseeing headshots, like you're just
yeah. So we set up
okay.
this big backdrop. They would come in with whatever because they were performing scenes. It was state competition for drama, and they would come in and so they could get their 8x10, and we would print it and that kind of thing and hand it to them. And again, this digital photography was barely new at that point, and there was no cell phones. Did not have cameras in them. And I had to look. My parents showed up at the end of the day. And my dad had this big smile on his face, like, let's go. And I had to tell him I made nothing. And I had to look at my wife. And my wife is like the MVP, straight up, because that whole day, she kept a smile on her face and was like, hey, you know what? This is just a bump in the road. And like, if Atlas was ever to drop the earth, that was the moment. And from that point on, it has been... I know there's other first world problems that are way beyond mine, but it has been murder to exist in my creative career, because every time I take a step that's successful, I don't go confidence, let's keep going. I go, thank God. And I have learned to try to use my confidence again of that world of creativity and imagination that I lived and loved so much. But now, today, I live a life where every step I take is so calculated to make sure it makes profit and money. I find it's very hard having anxiety, having these battle scars. It's very hard for me to do work now as a creative simply for the joy of it. Because that little crappy voice in your head keeps telling me this is a colossal waste of your time. You need to be at home with your kids. You need to be doing this. You need to be running ads. You need to be planning. You don't need to be having fun being creative. And I don't know how to get out of that.
It's strange to me that you say that, because I wonder if, the multiple times now that you have indeed, all joking aside, but kind of joking, that you have indeed nuked your career from orbit. Because I don't think you're giving yourself due credit. People need to understand how ridiculously successful you have been. When you were living in Des Moines, you were doing a lot of work for a lot of money.
Yes.
You really were. You were doing weddings. You were voted the best wedding photographer in Des Moines at least once. Was it twice? Okay. Which usually means you're pretty shitty. Not at all, clearly. Right. You were charging a premium price for your services, and people were paying it. You were not overcharging, because the supply and demand, basically consumer economics, right? People were paying a lot of money to have you come and capture their most important day, right? You were doing that and you were making a shitload of money. You were offered the option at one point of having a building purchased for you, that you were going to stay, and you're going to stay in this line of work. So it's strange to me that you say that you panic if you're only doing something for the fun of it, because I also know that parts of that you were not enjoying.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is one of the reasons you.
Yeah.
Your business in Des Moines, because you could very easily be living in a $1 million house in Des Moines right now.
So
full stop. No issues, like maybe even already paid off. Okay. Right. But that business, you're like, nah, we're done here. I don't want to do weddings anymore. I don't want to do senior photos. I want to go do something else. So to me, what that says, in my professional psychological opinion.
But you have a lot of experience in that, a lot of training.
Right. But still, what that says to me is that you weren't receiving the creative fulfillment you were searching for in that. So it wasn't that you were doing all this fluffy creative stuff that you felt guilty because you weren't providing, because it was quite the opposite. You were over providing. You were doing very well financially. But I think my opinion would be that you weren't fulfilled creatively. So you're like, hey, it's all or nothing. Drop the bomb on this. Let's move to Arizona and let's try something new down there, which you did. And you went down, you established a market and a client base and a completely different direction, because continually I'm like, David, take a fucking senior picture. like you want to pay your electricity? take a fucking senior photo, David. If you want to buy a new car, do a wedding in Phoenix, because you can charge a stupid amount of money and the lighting is great.
Because it's always on.
It's always on, and you're just like, no, that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. I want to achieve this success in this area, in this market that is somewhat underutilized because you moved to cosplay and high fashion, stuff like that you weren't doing a whole lot of in Des Moines, right? So that's my impression of what happened. So it's interesting to me to hear you talk about how you were feeling in your brain and heart, because it's very different from outwardly what it looks like. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been blessed to be a teacher for a number of years now in photography, teaching both photography and Photoshop. I started mainly because of Photoshop, then felt the confidence like I've got something to offer in photography. And the conference that I taught at the most, I retired. My last year was 2023. I chose not to reapply because we moved to Denver. We had another kid, and I'm pursuing a different genre. And as I told the students, and again, I say this not to be arrogant, it's just the truth. There were a couple hundred people that in over 4 days that came up to me and asked why I was leaving, and you need to stay and all this stuff. And I kept telling them I cannot honorably return and teach the same thing over and over again. I need to innovate or die, which is a motto and a mantra that I learned from a very successful photographer in our industry long ago, who owns the conference that I taught at. But I would tell them, I'm not going to come here and specifically the owner of the conference, when I said I was quitting, told me in an email, don't you see the value of returning and sharing your journey as you go on this new genre and building a new business and so forth? You need to come and share this and teach it. And I said, I cannot honorably stand in front of a group of people and teach them things that I have not found my way forward through. And there's a methodology in teaching where you just need to learn the first couple of steps, and then you can turn around and teach that to the people behind you. And people make a lot of money being teachers that way. I despise that. People get into teaching for the money of it instead of the joy and helping others.
Noted. Zach's mediocre at everything. Zach should not teach anything. David will despise him.
So if you have a natural aptitude for something that you do, that's a different story to me. But one of the things that I taught for a very long time, and it's a lesson that, again, I have to lay the credit right at my wife's feet, because she's very intelligent when it comes to the inner workings of some of these aspects, especially how my muddled brain makes my way through. There's an idea that I teach to people called perception of reality, and that their perception of my reality is vastly different than what my actual reality is. And when it comes to running a business, I was victim to this for years and very much frozen in fear because of this. I would look at my competitors in town and go, oh, they're making so much money. They're doing this, they're doing that. And then to come to find out, no, they're a month away from bankruptcy. I learned with powerful examples that perception of reality, oh, this person is rubbing elbows with this other famous photographer. They must be in this. Oh, and I know that no, I don't know. And there's no way for me to empirically prove it, even if they tell me to my face, because half the time in business, they're lying to protect, the brand. And
half, that's adorable. Half, 90% of the time they're lying.
And one of the steps that I boldly took early on in our career was I decided to do, again, it goes back to you give more than you get. I started being honest with our clients and saying, hey, we're hurting for business. And not, oh my gosh, it sucks, and I'm so depressed. And so I would just say, my hat in my hand, say, enthusiastically, we need more clients, and I want to keep doing this work. Can you help us? Can you tell people how much fun you had and all that? And it opened my mind to word of mouth and referral programs in an honest way, instead of, if you bring in 5 people, you'll get a free. So I didn't care for any of that garbage.
Right.
So your perception of my reality, my dear friend, is horribly, horribly wrong. So
I love it so much.
we won Best of Iowa Wedding Photographer 2 years in a row. Do you know how we won it?
Tell me you didn't do any sexual things to people.
In a buffet at a bowling alley, but they had Super Mario Brothers. There's
up, down, left, right.
You get 30 free buffs against the disease you're about to get. So Buffs, video games, buffs. It's, you buff your character so that you...
Yeah, that.
Yeah, buffing, grooming, choking.
Fluffing? What? Continue.
I've got to call my therapist. All right, so we won that because you could sign up for a very popular wedding website called Wedding Wire and the knot.com, KNOT.com. If you paid a premium, which was, I think, like $2,000 for the year, which we didn't have, if you pay that, and then people send in reviews, whoever has the highest reviews becomes the best wedding photographer in Iowa. My brilliant wife got on the horn with every single bride we'd photographed and pestered them to the point that we got the most reviews and became the best wedding photographer in Iowa, quote unquote. That's how we won.
Right. Now, so you won by people that you'd worked with
that liked the experience. Right. So I'm not saying that our work and hard work and what we did as
my
a brand,
perception is not as bad as you said it was, David.
I agree. But you talk about a ridiculous amount of money. The most that we made in 1 year for our weddings, I think, was like $80,000.
That's a lot of money.
I know, but here's the reality. Our studio cost us $25,000 a year. And we were broke because we had infused all of our money into getting the business going, making horrible mistakes. So that year that we made the money, we barely paid ourselves like $5,000. We could not keep up. So flashing forward to something you said about me, stepping into cosplay and other things because I wasn't finding the creative fulfillment. You're absolutely correct, because I did not approach photography from the benign, let's take your portrait. I've approached it immediately by storytelling. The work that I was doing was one of our original brand mottos was, you are unique and so are we. And that was how we captured brides at wedding shows and things of that nature to book and convert. Everything that I did was different and unique. And I was pushing the envelope. And again, I don't mean this to be arrogant, but I have the visual evidence and know history. One of the key factors that people in my industry, when you get together at a conference and start talking and sharing battle scars, everybody's experienced this. I had countless people of varying, whether it's high school senior photography, weddings, mainly the high school seniors where this came from the most. I was doing all this creative work and I loved it. And I was constantly innovating. On our day off, I would still go into the studio and teach myself Photoshop and was learning and expanding. I would have countless people come to me and say, high school seniors, my kid wants to come to you so bad. They love your work. We love it. We think it's amazing. So-and-so that did it last year was amazing. We want to do the same thing. But we have to go to your competitor in town because my kid is a part of a group organization at the school. And our competitor did this wonderfully horrific marketing idea. He got the contract to photograph all 1 8x10 of each of these kids that were in the National Youth Leadership Council or Merit Society or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. So as a part of being in that program, you had to get one picture taken from him that would be displayed at the school. But the way that he worded it and the way they worded it was, you have to get your senior pictures taken by him. So these kids would go there and he wasn't even the photographer. It was a chain that started in northern Iowa and he had a staff of photographers.
Was it Life Touch?
No.
Oh. Okay.
He had a staff of photographers. They took the most banal, benign, crappy photos. They charged triple time what we charged.
Everybody say pickle.
Pretty much. Young girls laying on the ground with their knees bent. And doing that. Yep. Yeah, a picture you would take for an 8-year-old girl, not an 18-year-old. Boys doing the Captain Morgan pose on a chair in their suit. Yep. So they would come to us and say, we've already spent $3,000 and my kid hates every photo, doesn't like them. Can you cut us a deal? After a while, when you have to keep saying to people, no, I can barely afford to pay myself. I wouldn't say that to them, obviously, because you have to lie to protect the brand.
Right. I'm so busy. I cannot afford.
We would tell them, we would love to photograph your kid. And I'm so sorry that you went to our competitor and spent that much money. Our pricing starts at X.
Right.
And Some would engage, some would not, and just make their kid deal with the crappy photos that they bought. Parents would tell us we didn't even want to go. We hated it, but we had to.
What did they think was binding them there? What did they think they had signed?
Their kid being a part of this program would not have their picture at the school. And they had a display in the mall. So their kid would not have this milestone if they did not get their senior pictures taken by our competitor. And no matter how much we told them, that is not true. You can go there and get one picture taken by this person and then come to my studio. Nope, because they wouldn't screw with the system.
So weird.
It is. And imagine how deflating it is to a young business owner who's driven by creativity, knows nothing about business and learned on the job painfully. And at that time in my industry, there wasn't a lot of education that the way it's accessible now. The education was to go to a conference, and the teachers they would design their curriculum to teach you 25% of what you needed to know, and then just drip you into every single workshop they did. And you would spend a fortune before you actually learned what you need. The man that I used to work for in our industry, who owns the conference that I used to teach at, there's a teaching program, I think it's still around now, called Creative Live. And they innovated, and they would have live broadcasts, bringing in these very talented people, and you could watch for free live. If you wanted to download the videos, download all the supporting PDFs and all that kind of stuff, then you paid $99. And you got like 2 days worth of content that was focused, great content. And my previous boss that I teaching for it at his conference, he did a Creative Live and 100% shattered the educational industry, because he went out there and he was like, not only was he a wonderful teacher, he was a male photographer that went out and was like, he taught you how to photograph, tight, middle, wide. You do a tight shot, and then a medium shot, and then a big shot. Both as landscape and portrait, move on. And I'm shooting 30, 40 frames, tight, close-up headshots, right? Before I would even move the kid or move the bride. And
so now that like cameras have like 7,000 megapixels, it's like just shoot the wide and move.
pretty much. Pretty much.
I mean, because you can get in there like.
I use a Canon R5 with an RF 24-70 f2.8 lens, and when I shoot big full body shots, especially for cosplay, I can zoom in, and I'm like, my gosh, I can see the horrible pores on your face, even though I took a full body shot.
Even the R with a kit lens could get you in there now. I mean, it's insane. We're gonna bore the shit out of people for a minute, but like the advances in technology from when we were both shooting with a 50D and everything was in soft focus all of the time because there's nothing else you could do. It just wasn't, the technology wasn't, there were great photos then, but if you go back, like I've been pulling to submit to like Shutterstock and Adobe Stock, I'm pulling some of those photos and I'm like, man, I remember taking this picture and thinking how awesome it was. And like, I can't see any detail here. Like technologically it wasn't happening then. And now I pull out my Canon R and I shoot a picture that like everything isn't even right. And I'm like, I can sell that.
So in the, of course you can, Mr. I pirated HBO when I was 6. So the key to that, and this is something that is a very important thing to me right now in our day and age of technology. We are jumping all over the place. So when I was 5, the key to that,
well, I mean, to be fair, that was like 45 minutes ago.
Right. Is AI. The AI in the Canon cameras, all the cameras now, because at 50D, you had to move the focus field. And the further you moved away from center, even if you locked on perfectly, the sensor, the lens, they just could not communicate. It was going to naturally be blurry. And people would refocus. So they'd lock on critically in the center and then move the camera. The moment you do, it's out of focus. Now, AI finds their eye, and there you go, a moving car going 120 miles an hour. And the Canon locks onto it and shoots 30 frames a second, and just they're all perfectly in focus. When people now complain AI is destroying the world and so forth, with one respect, with AI technology, how the AI was trained is wrong, in my opinion. Again, as an artist, you put something out on the information superhighway. Yes, you have to accept that your loss of control is absolute. So these companies just put it into their machine learning, and now you can type into, Midjourney, I want the art in this style, this artist, and yada yada, and it replicates a pretty good. And I just saw an image this morning from a AI artist that it is the first image that 100% looks real, and it's all AI generated.
You know, a lot of them I can tell.
Yeah,
like they look real as hell, but you can still just tell.
Yeah, the lighting and everything else. But this one looked real, and I was like,
a little too shiny.
Yeah,
a little too shiny a lot of times. Yeah.
So I was lacking, going back, I was very much lacking affirmation of my creativity. What I wanted in the beginning of my career was people to be excited to come to our studio because they wanted art from us and they wanted the experience from us. And instead, they would come to us with this monkey on their back that they had made a poor decision, and now they're coming to us. We were blessed, though, because for every loss, there was a win right after it, which you can either see glass half full, half empty. It kept us going. But imagine that mental brutality of you get a win, you couldn't trust it.
Did you find the people that did decide to spend were excited about being there, were excited about working with you, were excited about the experience, correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, there was a kid, we had some really great examples of that, but there was a kid that I will never forget. Single dad, beautiful young lady, and they came from 2 hours away to have their senior pictures taken twice. They wanted 2 different sessions and 2 different, they wanted a fall session and summer session. And each time, Dad spent probably $2,500, $3,000. It was our highest ever sale. And Dad was a mechanic. Dad had been saving since this girl was pretty much conceived to be able to do this. And it was
so insane.
The most rewarding. And my wonderful wife, and just go with me on this for a second, all along the process, my nature of giving, I kept wanting to give Dad free product. And Bethany kept saying no. And not because she's a miser. She kept saying, if you do this and you take away the joy, you are robbing them of the joy that Dad has been building up, the joy of this experience. Yes, some people want to go to Disneyland. And if they were approached to Disneyland by Walt Disney, one, he's dead, so that would be horrifying. So they're approached by Mickey Mouse and says, Mickey's going to give you the VIP pack and you can go everywhere. Wow, what a great Disney vacation, yada, yada, yada. Yes, there is some intrinsic value of that winning the lottery, so to speak, being given to you. But more often than not in business, I've encountered people will feel good to pay for what they want to pay for when they've convinced themselves they're ready to pay for it and ready to engage in it. And they would engage in it and pay us, but begrudgingly because they had made bad decisions elsewhere and wanted us to take the slack for it. And it hurt. And not emotionally, like it hurt our business badly.
Right.
And when Dream State closed its doors and I took the sticker off that door, it was one of the hardest moments of my life because I did it in defeat. And my last social media post for Dream State was the last high school senior we photographed. And I posted it it was a warning to clients saying, you have to value the artwork. You have to value the experience. And you're being lured in by good business practice, which is act now, hurry now, buy now, and I'm going to lure you in with that, but give you substandard work, but you are convincing yourself that it's worth it because you saved some dollars. But these are memories that will last a lifetime. And do you want to, when your daughter has her own daughter, and you come home after that event and look at the picture above the fireplace when your daughter was a young girl, do you want to see her sitting there like a little cherub 8-year-old because that crappy photographer took a shit photo because they aren't creative, but you got a great deal on that picture? Like, no.
Senior photos are so weird to me because one, they're one of my favorite things to do because I love showing up as just a guy, just a regular guy, like not a quote unquote artsy guy. I show up in a freaking hoodie and a pair of jeans and a pair of tenny kicks, and like I can take a picture of a dude, I can take a picture of a girl, I can make the girl feel super pretty, I can make the dude feel like, oh God, he's not going to try to touch me in a bad way. You know, I can do whatever I need to do, and it's fun because I can joke around with them. I can swear and make them be like, oh, he's treating me like an adult, you know?
Yep.
And I really enjoy the process. What I don't understand about senior photos is why people are willing to pay so much money for them. It's stupid. Because odds are what's going to end up happening with that entire shoot that they pay all this money for is probably 2/3 of those photos are going to end up in a drawer somewhere. Mm-hmm. You know, they're going to put one picture on the wall. Well, the first they'll get them all and they'll put them up everywhere and they'll put them on social media and everything. eventually what's going to end up happening is one photo is going to be on the wall. You know, it's not like a wedding where, your wedding photos are somewhere forever for the rest of your life. Senior photos, especially now, like when we were kids, senior photos were a huge deal, because like your parents would leave them out forever, but that's not what happens now. And you take phenomenal photos. I take pretty good photos. So I like to think that my photos are worthy of the quality of being displayed, right?
Let me jump in on that. Let me jump in on that real quick. You take cinematic work because of your natural aptitude toward performance. You take cinematic work. You don't take portraits. And I'm not blowing sunshine. You create art. You take cinematic pictures.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I guess for me, it's like I enjoy the process, so I don't really give it that much thought as to, whatever. But I find it cathartic to photograph, and so I enjoy it. But I don't understand the amount of money that people are willing to spend and that they are willing to trust in people that are sketchy. You know what I mean? Like these other companies it's all about marketing and stuff for a photo that is most likely going to end up in a drawer. So it's that weird juxtaposition of I really like it. I like charging money for it. I like getting paid for it. I like the process. I enjoy the seniors. I win that when I'm fortunate enough for that to happen, because clearly it's a hobby for me. But it's just such a weird conundrum, because like high school is that time in most people's lives where it's the most important part of their life until it's over, and then it didn't matter. If you're a normal human being. Yeah. If you're a jock that ends up selling cars for your uncle, then it's still the most important part of your life for the rest of your life. But, in the grand scheme of things, the importance of it, law of diminishing return, like the further you get away from it, the less important it was. And so those photos, the amount of money some of these places are charging and that people are willing to pay is kind of crazy to me. It would be better, honestly, more productive. I feel like for if you're a photography company and you're going to be long haul, if you charge a little less and get more people, but it's just insane that these people are getting fleeced for like $3,000 for senior photos. Obviously not from you. I'm talking about these other companies that
I know.
do the weird shit, They're getting fleeced for this $3,000 for something that ultimately, they're having a bad experience, they're having bad quality, and it's going to go in a drawer. Hey, there you are. No. Oh, you can't hear me? Hold on.
Wait, now you're back.
Oh, what happened?
You lagged big time, and then when you came back, you were quiet.
Oh, okay. Well, what's important is they heard me on this side.
All right. Fine.
It's direct. It's direct here.
Am I your guest or are you the guest today? I'm just curious.
Fuck, don't.
I'm just playing. I'm just playing, dude. No, because this is a good conversation. And I told you I didn't want to do this, a while ago when you brought this up, because I'm like, I'm not famous. But when I thought if I share this on my social media and so forth, the people who do follow me in my industry, there's a good conversation here about my work or about this industry.
And you're a little famous.
I'm not famous.
A little bit.
No.
A little bit.
No. People your perception of my reality, again, is vastly different from my reality.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, you go into your circles, your photography circles, and ask people like, hey, who's David Byrd? They're going to be able to answer you.
Sure.
If you go into a podcast circle and they're like, who is Zach Barkley? You're going to be like, I don't know.
Okay. Then yes, in my industry, but a small section of it. People are going to know the name Peter Hurley before they're going to know the name David Byrd.
You just made that name up. That's
No, Peter Hurley is a fashion photographer in New York. But the last conference I taught at, we were told not to under contract to disclose the numbers, but I was I'm holding up a set of numbers on my hands, and since I have 10 fingers, I was between 1 and 10 ranked out of 80 teachers, and that particular person was ranked.
Wow.
Yeah.
So David.
Okay.
You know what the good news is? I can disclose the numbers.
That's fine with me. That's fine with me. I just made hand gestures. That's all. I open palm slap somebody.
So here's what I would say. If David were to try to flip someone off in public, he would hold up this many fingers and tell you to read the one in the middle. That would give you an idea of what he was trying to show me.
I can't physically.
Oh my God, does that hurt?
It really does, because I'm holding my index and ring finger down. Ow, it's hurting my hand.
When David flips the bird, it is impossible for him to completely extend his middle finger without his other fingers coming up and doing this weird little like this thing. Like, it's bizarre. I don't know whatever happened to him. What injury? Is that the one you broke? Is that the arm you broke?
No, it's this one.
What happened? Oh, I have no idea why. I don't know. We are totally off the rails. But no, I mean, I think, and maybe famous isn't the right word, notable, having an amount of notoriety, certainly having a knowledge base and being an expert in your field, I think is very fair, which is what this show is about. People who have an amount of knowledge or interest in something that other people don't necessarily have, and learning about that. And I think where you really bring your expertise is being a business owner, being a creative, being an instructor, being an award winner, because on top of that, your work has been recognized for its quality and for its originality. And I mean, I don't think it would be stupid. And this is anecdotal. Like, I'm just off the top of my head. I would say it could be argued pretty easily that you're one of the top 10 Photoshop artists in the United States. I think that just looking at the quality of work, knowing that you're teaching, knowing what you have built on your own as far as creating plugins. And I mean, I use David's frequency separation plugin on every project I work on because I'm lazy, right? So all I have to do is hit play, and then it'll send me to the median filter, and then I'm like, yes, at 8, and then play again. And now I can go in and manipulate the image within that plugin, and it just saves me so much time to not have to build all these layers myself. And it is so effortless and allows for me to spend more time on creativity. So for someone to be able to create that, and it's a unique filter, because I've also seen other frequency separation filters that use different filters. They use a different process. It's not as fine tuned. And for you to be able to build that shows a certain amount of expertise. So when you say, I don't want to talk to you on this show because I'm not what you're saying, you're full of shit and you just need to suck it up and move on.
Wow.
So,
okay, then.
Well, that being said, I mean, really you are. I mean, for someone to go to a photography conference in front of thousands of people and be recognized in the hallway, pretty big deal.
I'll be honest. I mean, and I don't say this again arrogantly and so forth. It'd actually be,
for the first time ever.
It is at this stage of my life. It's one of the aspects, a memory that the first time it happened. We were, my wife and I, at the conference that I taught at. I think this is my third year teaching, my second year. But it was after I had won the Grand Imaging Award from the conference. So I'd won it the previous year, and then that conference the next year. We were in our hotel room. She was writing down a database of information from cards I collected in my class. And we were having a quick lunch in the room of salad. And on the main vendor drag of the entire hall, they were selling food. The hotel was selling food. So I said, I'll run out and get some chicken tenders. We'll throw it into our salad. And she said, let me go get it.
This is too healthy. Yeah. This is too healthy, and I want to unhealthy it.
Pretty much. Right. And she said, let me go get it. And I said, no, I got it. And she said, you're going to get stopped. And I was like, I'm not famous. The walk.
You dummy.
Once I went out the door from the hotel rooms to the main vendor floor, it should have taken me no more than 10 minutes to walk over, get the chicken tenders, and go back. It took me an hour. Because again, my father taught me this, you give of yourself and be of service to others. People lined up and I didn't be like, oh, I'm here, come talk to me, whatever. I'm in it for the chicken, right? And people line up and are asking me a question. And I would talk to them and not, oh yeah, let's talk offline, or you should sign up for my workshop. I would deep dive with every person because that was my job. I was a teacher. And I, being a student at that conference, I wanted to inspire people.
And it's fun. It's fucking fun.
No, it's not.
Bullshit. It is, because I've been there.
Okay, but it's not to me.
Oh, that's too bad, man. No, you need to enjoy that shit.
It's a good feeling to know that I've helped people. Absolutely. But being a teacher, and again, for anybody that follows me that listens to this is one of the reasons why I had to step away. Because when you become a teacher and you care about the person in front of you, you don't see them as a meal ticket. Or you don't see your own ego first. Oh, they're walking up to talk to me. I'm so important. Yes, next. They're walking up to talk to me. I'm so... No, you take on their troubles. You take on their worries. I do. And in my head, I feel like I'm responsible because some of these people would come up to me with their hat in their hand saying, save me, I'm 3 months away from bankruptcy. And I would sit down with them and spend 20 minutes going, you got to do this and that and yada, yada. And then they're so elated and they're going home and excited. And I'm walking away like a nervous parent going, my God, if it doesn't work, I'm responsible.
Well, that's your bullshit though. That's your fault.
Oh, straight up.
Yeah. Like, so it can be, but that's what I'm saying is it can be fun. What are you at your core, David? What are you?
Human? An artist?
Oh, no, you're not human. An artist. That's what I was going for. You're a creative, right?
Oh shit, they all know now.
And before you were just simply a creative, you were an
artist,
actor. You're an actor,
performer. Yeah,
you're a performer, right?
Yeah.
What is more fun than having an engaged fucking audience, David? That's all they are. But they're just an audience.
But even in the theater, and again, I don't mean this to be arrogant, but I have vivid memories of a few times in performances where I could hear a pin drop in the house. And as an actor, I never subscribed to the Meisner method. I never subscribed to the fourth wall. I was aware of that audience the entire time because I was there to entertain them. When I would get done with the show and then, you go up into the lobby or whatever as you're trying to leave and people come, oh my gosh, your performance was amazing, yada, yada. I was uncomfortable. I would tell them every time. I would tell them, I'm so glad you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for coming and spending money on it so we can do more shows. But like it would make me nervous and not like, oh, give me notes or whatever. Or, oh, thank you, my adoring fan. Like, no, I wanted to be left alone because I had done my job and I wanted to just go and be me again and not have to accept the praise. And not because I didn't believe in it. I knew I was very good at what I did. And I know I'm a great teacher. I know I'm a great photographer. I'm a great Photoshop artist. I know this. I don't wake up every day and remind myself of this. I just do. Like going back to being a kid, I just wanted to create. I wanted to live in the world of make-believe. I didn't need approval. I didn't need praise. I just wanted, none of that was important to me. Doing the work was what I wanted to do. People at conferences, again, I'm very fortunate and blessed for it. They come up and they tears in their eyes and all that. God, I sound like, never mind. They would come up to me and say essentially how much a difference I had made for them. And I would reach out and honestly tell them, I didn't do anything for you. All I did was give you permission to do what you already knew you should have done. And I would tell people that more often than not because that was true. People would come up. I can't tell you how many times people go, hey, David Byrd, could I just have 5 minutes of your time? Absolutely. Okay, I'm thinking about doing this marketing strategy, this step, systematically I do this, I'm going to photograph this, and yada, yada. What do you think? And I would tell them, I think it's amazing. Fine tune this, and there you go. And they would say, David Byrd gave me this amazing path to follow and all this business in a can and ideas. And I'm like, you came up and told me. All I did was give you permission.
Now I'm starting to understand why you keep nuking businesses, David. Like, Jesus. You just be like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And move the fuck on, man.
Well, and again, some of my betters in the educational world have pretty much said the same thing to me. Do you realize how much money you're leaving on the table? When they walk up, David Byrd, could I have 5 minutes of your time? Absolutely. And then give them 25% of what they need to know. And I would look at those people and say, fuck you. Like, no, you're a predator. These people have enough money to run their business for 6 months and you're going to take it from them to drip the education to them? Forget it.
And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is enjoy that moment.
Oh,
like just enjoy the moment and be like, yeah. Oh, hey, I'm glad I could help. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm glad I could be here. And this interaction, this human interaction that we're having is probably helping them and you just as much. This communicative interaction that you're having.
Yes.
When you're at a place that everyone has a shared goal, has a shared interest, and you're, say, for example, you're a teacher there at that interaction, and I've beat your head against the wall on this so many times.
I know.
That shared interaction is part of what they're paying for. That's part of their experience. And we are like a married couple. In that we are so incredibly different, and that's the only reason our friendship works.
I agree.
In that you do it for the art, and I'm a normal person.
Sure.
You do it for the art, but what you have to recognize is from a business standpoint, you also have to embrace the other parts of the. You know what? Talking to this person isn't so bad. Matter of fact, I might actually learn. I might actually meet a person here, and I might have fun in this conversation. Those are the moments I look forward to. That's why I miss stand up. Like I miss being on stage, but I miss after the show.
Yeah,
and not the you were so funny. But it's like, who am I going to meet tonight? Like, what kind of weirdo am I going to bump into out there that I'm going to have a story about later? What kind of interaction is going to happen? It used to be when I was single, who am I going home with?
Yeah.
It was very different, but you know what I mean? But like, for me, it was always like, I like these interactions, and it's not because they're stroking my ego. It's because this is how I interact with people. This is how I get to meet a new person and have a new experience. And if they happen to gain something from that, that's awesome. But you are more like, okay, I'm out of gas right now. I already did my instruction. I had my interaction. I want to go eat my chicken tenders. I want to go back to the room. I don't want to have to 100% be... It's almost like it makes you uncomfortable. The adoration, the acknowledgement in person of what you've done. It's like, you're like, I don't want to do all that. I just want to do the instruction. It's like, David, let's have a mixer the night before. I will pay for every one of their drinks. No, I don't want to do that. Like, so you don't want to do that. I was like, I promise you it will turn out okay.
And that's what I was going to jump in to say, was to tell everybody that essentially one of the last workshops that I was planning that I did, you encouraged me to have the mixer the night before. Mm-hmm. And you flat out told me that the reason why was because people would enjoy and want to come and have a chance to sit and talk to me and have a drink with me. And I 100% oil and water. I'm like, absolutely not. To clarify, you said something about, I want to do the teaching and be done and go get my chicken fingers and have my salad. It isn't that I don't want to be bothered. I would stay after every class. And I used to say, one of the conferences I taught at, the first day when the organizer was telling the crowd how things are going to work, and once the class was done, he was talking up the party, and then we'll be in the lobby and we're going to do this and that. And then he went to one teacher, where are you going to be? I'm going to be down there at the lobby, yada, yada. He turned to me and said, what are you going to be doing? And I said, I will be right back here in this classroom teaching. So if you want to come up and learn Photoshop after hours, I'm not, this is off my docket of contractual obligation. I'll be here teaching. When at the conference that I taught at, the bigger conference, some of my betters, I mean this with respect to them, but it's true. Once they're done teaching, they go and ensconce themselves on their private table with all the fancy bigwig teachers, because they're there all excited to be, oh, I'm talking to famous, I'm famous, oh, we're all famous. I'm out there working. I'm out there helping people. I'm out there teaching until the last couple of conferences, because I couldn't keep going, because I couldn't walk from point. I would be walking to class and I'm running late, and people, can I just have fun? And I couldn't rectify my head. I must stop and give you information. Even if it's to say, I'm so sorry I'm late to class. Can you come with me or find me afterward? And I would go find those people and give them something of me. So to run back to my room to eat chicken fingers was a safe place, because I could not accept, I couldn't carry anymore. At the same time, the last couple of years of my teaching, I was going out of my mind with anxiety. And we had just had our first child, and I went bananas, and people don't know this. Again, if they listen to this that are familiar with me, the first major conference I taught at after our son was born, I was on medication for anxiety and a pretty heavy dose. Every night of that conference, I would go back to my room, take my meds, try to go to sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night because I could hear my son screaming. It was so real. And I would get up, I'm coming. I walked right into the TV and the console in the hotel room. And it took me damn near 20 minutes to realize where I was. And I would have to sit there and do mindful thinking and breathing. And you were not at home. You were in this city doing this job. You're here. This is where you are. This is what, and then I would be up, and the heart rate, the blood pressure, everything. It was like getting hit by a truck. And then I would have to go out and be David Byrd to all these people. And they wanted the best for me, and I had to give them the best. And by the time that conference was done, that was the first time I went home afterwards, and I said to my wife, I can't do this anymore. I can't carry my burdens and be responsible to give the best to these people who are there seeking it. But yet, when I went back the next conference, my absolute goal was I must give them the most. I must do the best. And not because I'm David Byrd and I'm amazing and they're lucky to be in the same room with me. It was because this is what people need. And there's going to be a person just like me, a student just like me, that comes up with their hat in their hands and says, I'm 6 months away from bankruptcy. Can you help me? I didn't really get that when I was a student. So this is like, parenting, essentially. My career in education is like parenting. I'm trying to make up for the mistakes of my childhood, so to speak. I didn't, I got it from some teachers, but very minimally. If I would have, what I could have been more close to the reality that you think I had if I would have gotten the proper support when I started business. But I didn't get it. And then I had an opportunity to become that for people. And I said, 100%, I will do this.
Do you feel like you choose to carry more than other people are putting on you?
I certainly choose to carry things when people aren't intending for that to be the case.
Yeah, I think that was actually what I was asking.
Gotcha.
So I'm glad it.
But it's implicit. Of course, I'm biased. I'm trying to protect myself. I don't think I go out of my way to do that. It's implicit when somebody walks up and goes, "Hey, hey Matt, I love your work, yada yada yada." That's one conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I know you're so great and yada and you're really busy, but can I just ask?" And when you do that, the question isn't, how do you use the mixer brush in Photoshop? The question is, how do I save my business? How do I achieve my dreams? It's just, that's ultimately, whatever words they use, that's what they're asking. Because they believe my reality is one where I know all the answers and I can solve all problems, and I can't.
So I imagine that those questions haven't gone away.
No,
because you have a following on social media and you have a presence, even though it's definitely tapered. Your presence has tapered off social media over the last 2 years.
100%.
But you still have
nuking it for morbid.
Right. Nuking it for morbid. You still have a presence, and you have people that seek your approval and that seek your advice. Right? Have you thought of adjusting your message in order to take a little bit of the onus off of you, and that when people ask you something like that, say, "Look, I can't fix it for you, but here's what you could try." It takes so much of the ownership of their decision off of you. It does give them whatever tools you may have, and I would think by extension would lower your stress level in that you're not as invested in it anymore.
So I do precisely what you're recommending.
Of course you do, because I'm awesome. Sorry.
Right. Of course you are. Yes, you are. You're the leader of your tree on indoor. I do it, but I do it at the end. So because I know how impactful and important it is. When somebody walks up, they're nervous, they're scared, they need advice, they need help. Again, I'm not famous. They walk up and talk to me like I am, right? And I know how important it is to
them. You are. You don't get to decide if you're famous. You don't get to decide. Everybody else decides that.
See, and that is an absolute truth. That the real famous people that you've interviewed on these episodes, which again are brilliant to me, because you're taking real famous people and showing them as humans, and that it was just mind-boggling to me when I started listening to the show. When these people come up to me and I'm larger than life in their mind, my first thing is to reach out and become human to them. Mm-hmm. And to become human to them does not mean I open up by saying, "Now I can't help you, but if I were to suggest something," I approach it from, "Hey, I'm human. Let's shake hands. Tell me your problems. Let me help you." And then at the end, I tell them, "Here's what's important. I've given you information. You're excited. You're going to get home, and then doubt is going to start to step in. Only you can navigate that. And whether this flies or fails is on you, not on me." So I do my disclaimer at the end, which is a way to try to appease the anxiety in my head of I'm not responsible, but I will be damned if it never works. Because then I inevitably hear from them again going, "Hey, it worked," or I hear, "It's not working. Do you have more advice?" And I feel obligated to help.
So you know that through my company, I've gone to all these trainings on people in crisis and suicide prevention and stuff, because it's a fairly large company and has a culture of wellness, right?
Yes.
So they've put me through all these trainings, which is it's a thing that's starting to take over in the country, but to have a company say, "Hey, we're going to put some training towards people's mental wellness and towards, any job is stressful, right? So they want to protect their employees." So I go to all these trainings, and I've had to deal with people at our company on a pretty regular basis, unfortunately, that are mentally ill, that are in mental health crisis, or that are actively suicidal. Those people, undoubtedly, when I make contact with them and talk to them, could die. tomorrow from suicide, right? I will talk to them. I will get them to a place that I feel like they're safe, a place that I feel like they're going to be in a situation, or get them to the resource that they need, knowing full well that I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Knowing full well that if that person decides to die by suicide tomorrow, that's a decision that they've made. I have short-circuited my brain to go, here are the skills. Fly, bird. Because I can't, if I carry that with me, even an hour after the conversation that we've had, I will be a mess. You have to learn to do the same thing.
I don't think I will ever be able to do it.
You can, trust me. Because you are an empathetic person. I get that. So am I.
I was programmed to be that since a child.
Yep.
So how do you undo 40 years worth of programming?
By recognizing that you can still care about the outcome without bearing the weight of the decision.
And I hear you, because there are certain elements that I can certainly logically subscribe to, like, and this is an easy way out, but I give them a certain set of advice, and other industry leaders in education are famous for saying this. If you follow the system perfectly, then I will feel ownership toward your results. But if you decide to muddy the waters, that's on you. And they are able to abdicate responsibility immediately. And I've learned to kind of do that by saying, here's my advice. And when they come back, it didn't work, or I didn't succeed. What did you do? And I'm able to help them identify where they went wrong because they made their own choices. But I try to still enforce and encourage that you should put something of yourself. My word is not doctrine. It's not written in stone. You have to make it your own. But success or failure is your own. I lived that from the very first time I became a teacher. And I found out I was a teacher. I made a Facebook Live video post, again, feeding algorithms instead of creating artwork. And I 100% thanked the person who gave me the job. And I said, we would not be here. I would not be here had it not been for him. But our success and our failure is on us. Yes. He didn't give it to us, but he gave me an opportunity. Right. And still to this day, even though I do not teach for him anymore, and most likely probably will not, I still say that my career began thanks to what he gave me the opportunity for. Sure. And all the opportunities from there on out.
So I think you need to adapt that and say, I am giving people this opportunity. When we're done with our conversation, I'm no longer responsible for what they do with that opportunity. Because then you have still helped, have not hindered, and you don't actually have to own anything, because odds are if they fail, it's because they did something in addition to whatever you discussed. Because, and also there's a good chance that if they succeeded, it's because they did something in addition to what you discussed.
Correct. Which is why when they come to me and say, it worked, thank you so much, David Byrd, I say, I didn't do it.
Right.
You did.
Right. But if you're going to say that about the success, you have to say it about the failure.
I
didn't fail you. I didn't fail you. You did.
I go, right. Because I want to, I look at them because I immediately, my heart opens up, my soul opens up, and I say, I know you're hurting. Let's fix it.
Yeah, that's empathy.
Let's find a way out of the dark.
That's empathy.
Right.
That's empathy.
So would you not, if you live and breathe empathy, it's just who you are. Would you not try to protect yourself from the outside world so that when there is no more to give inside the cup, when there's not a single drop of water, I can't give anymore until I fill it back up.
That's when you take a vacation.
Nuke it from orbit. That's what I did.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if tomorrow I'm just like, I quit? Could you imagine?
I would start sending a lot of care packages to your wonderful wife to be like, I'm so sorry. Can I help?
I mean, and you're in a much different situation than I am because you're a creative you're a business owner. But like, I like to believe that if I was ever fortunate enough to do what I actually want to be doing and was responsible for working for myself, that what I would have to do is I would have to treat it as if I wasn't my own employee and treat it more like, okay, I need a break. And up to this point, I've been fair to myself, maybe even a little unfair. So I'll take a break, but that's not an indictment on my hopes, dreams, goals, and the way I provide for my family. Like, I just need a break. And that's what most people do when they work for somebody else and take a vacation. That's what that is. It's not like you failed.
Right.
Yes. Manager, I would like to put in for a week off. That's because you're a fucking failure. Like, no, it's not. I mean, I just need to rest. I want to see the ocean.
Dude, there's right there. Amano. It's right there. I live in a world of make believe. That's a YouTube short series right there where like, you know, it's almost like a HR video. Like so you could do the shot A where the boss is like, oh, I know you've been working really hard, Zach. Okay, of course you can take a week off. And then shot B is like, you're a fucking failure, and like pushes the desk over and shit. And then the HR rep comes back in and is like, so when you're managing your team, do you choose ting A or ting B? And then when they're like, I choose B. And then the HR buys, because you're a fucking loser. And then it cuts. They're like, oh, dude, I would watch that every way to Sunday.
I mean, especially because at my company, there are both managers. They're like, when my child was born, I took 3 days off, and here you want 12 weeks. But like, well, I mean,
I birthed the child and I didn't even take time off.
It's like, well, I want my kids to love me, sir. Like, that would be ideal. I'd like to bond with my children. Do you know yours middle names? No? Okay, weird.
Let me ask, because and I'm being legit here, because not only because we're talking about this, because you have a lot of, again, experience in mental health. Something that my wife has been doing for the past 3-4 years is she constantly keeps pushing me. You need to take time for you. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to go play video games for an entire weekend like you're 12 again. Like, do something. You need this break. You're losing it. And I cannot give myself permission. It drives me nuts.
Why?
To do it.
Why?
Because I need to be doing something for them. I was raised to be in service of others. And I know there's stuff to do in the house. I should be spending time with you. I should be spending time with our children. I should be working. I don't have time to play video games. I don't have time to go camping in the mountains for 3 days.
So the other 5 days of the week that you're doing all of that stuff are immediately negated by the fact that you took a day off?
Yes.
You are an idiot.
I agree.
That is not healthy thinking.
I'm in crisis and I don't know how to fix it.
So by thinking that way, you're doing them more of a disservice than you are by playing Jedi Survivor for 18 hours.
100%. Yeah. And that's what my wife keeps telling me. And I keep looking at her and saying, no, you're stupid. Let me tell you why.
Yeah. And see, that's that. And it probably is a sign of a highly motivated individual. But again, a sign of a person who is taking on more than the people who they're taking it on from expect them to take on, because it's unrealistic. You have to be willing to say, I worked my 80 hours this week. I get 2 for myself.
And to a degree, to show that he can be taught. I'm learning, because aside from anxiety, and still to this day, I mean, even this morning, I woke up and had to spend about 3 or 4 minutes after a horrible dream. I'm like, I'm in Denver. I'm not in this horrible place, and this is where I'm at, and all that kind of thing. My wife is able to sleep through anything. A bomb can go off and she'll wake up and then roll over and go right back to sleep. A mouse farts in Iowa and I hear it in Colorado and I'm awake and I cannot go back to sleep. And we learned very quickly after our son was born that if I don't sleep, I go, that's really not good for mental health. And I went bananas.
Yeah.
So I'm at a place now where, and a lot of parents make adjustments when they have young kids. But my wife, again, the MVP, she sleeps in my son has a full-size mattress in his room because he sleeps with her, and now the baby sleeps in the same room. And she takes care of them all night long. And she's a wonderful mother. She's incredibly gifted. It's an inherent trait inside of her. And I sleep downstairs in a small little guest room far away so that the sounds that I hear in the middle of the night, I can tell myself they're not real. It's all in your head, right? I sleep with a fan right next to my head and earplugs to try to convince myself I didn't hear somebody breaking into the house. I didn't hear my child screaming. The end of the world has not happened. Your chemicals in your brain are stupid. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I have learned to do that because I know that I am no longer of use to my family or to anybody that needs me if I am bananas. So I forgave myself needing to be the special snowflake that has to sleep in a private little room furthest away from all the people in the house so that I can actually sleep. I still feel like a shitbag for that. Like, my kids have people over and I'm going to be, daddy's got to go to his dungeon to sleep because he's bananas.
Have you ever thought about reframing it, thinking of it from the point of view that they don't need you for any of those things?
No, because my job is if somebody is breaking into the house, what if somebody's coming? I mean,
But they're not. And they're not going to.
But what if?
But they're trust me, they're not, and they're not going to. Statistically, David, let's talk as scientists for a minute. Statistically, the odds of you being the victim of a home invasion because you're not a drug dealer or a criminal.
Can I jump in real quick? Because I have to say this. You use the word scientist, and I want to say, back off, man. I'm a scientist.
The first time I ever got to say that, and it was like, it's accurate, was the best day of my life.
I believe you.
Are you, Alice, currently menstruating? So the idea to me, like, so scientifically, most home invasions, the cause is a person who is already involved in a criminal lifestyle, a drug user, or someone who owns someone else money. I don't know what your current financial situation is, but I know at least two of those things are not accurate. Okay. So odds are you are not going to be the victim of a home invasion. Okay. It's just not going to happen. Stop living your life like your home is being invaded. That's not healthy. So, right. And it's not going to happen.
So let me jump in because this is something I do see a therapist, and this is something that the therapist and I have talked about a few different times. He's associated the title PTSD, and I immediately said, no, I that's for folks who go to war and so forth.
Well, it's not, though. Yeah, it's not.
So, right. And again, it's I'm not that important. I'm not that important to have PTSD. When my wife and I you know this story, but when my wife and I, way before kids, our first home, she was sleeping on the couch with our dog because our dog was not feeling well, and I was up in our bedroom. I just happened to wake up 2:00-ish in the morning like you do. And I'm like, I'm out of water. I'm going to go downstairs and get some water. Mm-hmm. I walk down. I'm in my underwear. I walk down the steps. I'm about to turn into the kitchen, and standing right there on the other side of the glass door, the motion lights are on in the backyard, were two men with the yellow ties for a truck. And at the time, the Des Moines police, were looking for two men. They had been breaking into homes, tying people up, and doing horrific things using those truck ties. And I had my phone, using the light of my phone. I immediately put the phone against my chest, backed up into the living room, called 911, and then Bethany did not hear me because I wasn't talking at the top of I was whispering to the dispatcher. And then when I looked back into the kitchen, they were gone, but the light was still on. So I went to the front windows, and they were walking down our driveway coming to the front door. So I laid down on top of my wife, and she was like, no, I don't want it. And I'm like, shut up. The house is about to get broken into. And I told the dog to be quiet, and they walked around. They went to the street. Long story short, the police got there 10 minutes after I made the call. They saw them coming and ran into the woods, and they never found them. From that day forward, every time I hear the slightest bump, whether it's real or not, I'm like, I'm vigilant. I've got to get up. I've got to protect.
I can only do this because we are such good friends.
Sure.
And I love you so much.
Sure.
That entire exchange shows me that you shouldn't be worrying about protecting them because you're going to fuck it up.
I shouldn't be worrying about protecting them what?
Because you're going to fuck it up. You had a giant fucking dog and you told her to be quiet. You were whispering so as not to disturb the burglars instead of being like, yeah, this is dispatch 911, right? Yeah, the cops are a block away. Yeah, fuck these guys. Come get them. You're like, hey, we're going to be dead soon. Can you send a policeman to recover our bodies?
Pretty much. And I'm pretty sure I identified to the dispatcher, I have no weapons in the house except a lightsaber. So, no, I would not be able to help.
Folks, this dog was a fucking Akita. They're trained to kill.
But you knew Sasha, bless her.
But they didn't.
That's true.
They didn't.
That's true. She would have licked them to death. She wouldn't have bit them. She would have licked them to death.
They don't know that.
That's true.
They don't know that.
And sure, if they would have saw a big ass dog through the glass door, maybe they would have thought twice.
Or heard one, or yeah.
And Sasha barked five times in her entire life, so she was not dependable in that regard. If we had a Chihuahua, the Chihuahua would have been barking its head off, but not our Akita Husky mix.
I kid though. I kid.
I know.
So okay, but if we're still looking at it from a scientific point of view,
sure,
it's very, very rare, right?
Sure,
you've already had yours, so it's not going to happen again. Sure, I mean, and what are the odds, honestly, that would happen that time?
Right.
I mean, that was incredibly rare.
But that in itself feeds into it because what the logic loop that broke me was I just happened to wake up. So to me, it's divine intervention. It's magic. So now when I just happen to wake up in the middle of the night, I have to balance logic. Was this just a random occurrence, or is God waking you up to protect your family? And that's literally the dichotomy in my brain, that I get stuck in a logic loop instead of going back to sleep. And then 10 minutes later, I'm up because I'm awake, and forget it.
Try thinking of it this way. Like, regardless of what society would like for us to believe, most people can protect themselves. So the entire thing doesn't land on you to constantly remain vigilant. One of the things that we learn about in some of the trainings I've been to is that one of the reasons, like police officers, prison guards, dispatchers, they all die at a really young age. And one of the reasons that happens is because if you envision it like a car, and your RPMs, right? You know, that's bad if your RPMs run really high because the car's not shifting. It's being put under a tremendous amount of stress. So all of those people in those careers, their normal is, let's say, 8,000 RPMs. When they're calm, it drops down to like 5,000. Normal, for a normal is 1,000, 1,500, right? So they're running their car at 8,000 RPMs. And then even when they relax, they're only dropping down to 5. So they burn up really, really, really fast. And it's because of that insane, because it is insane, idea of hypervigilance. Because they're taught through their training and their experience that they need to maintain a hypervigilance all the time. The data does not support that.
Yeah.
The data says a bad thing could happen. It's far less likely that it will, but they're trained to fear this imaginary evil, this silent evil that's going to come out and get them, and no matter what job they're in, or this terrible thing that's going to befall them. Does it happen? Absolutely. Horrible things happen all of the time, but the data shows that it's far less likely to happen than it is to happen. So
I apologize for interrupting. I agree with you.
No.
100%. That type of logic is very difficult for me to anchor to. And here's an example. And I mean this seriously, but it may or may not sound funny. Does the data support that Pennywise the clown is actually going to walk into my bedroom when I'm 8 years old?
Ah, crap. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Sorry. I had to follow for a second, but yeah. So, right.
Does the data support that Pennywise is going to walk? Because I was 8 years old. Yeah. And because of a wonderful imagination, it's a curse too.
Right, sure.
So invasive thoughts are, in a way, a foundation of a hyper creative, because you have invading thoughts all the time of creativity, right? But they also come with a dark side. So now having children, and this is straight up honest, like this is the world that I navigate every 24 hours of my life. I don't sit down. It does not, it's invasive. It just happens. I don't go, oh, let me think of some horrific images. When I hear that sound, I can see my little boy standing there as some man walks into my house. And then my brain starts projecting images of what would happen to my son. And I go from 0 to I will fucking murder the world if you touch my child. And then I'm up. And I have to break that cycle in my head almost every morning. Like, I have to break this cycle of these we went to San Diego, our first family vacation, when we just had our son. And it was a 5-hour drive from Phoenix. Wife was super excited to go to San Diego. I was very excited. I love the ocean. She really loves the ocean. And it was going to be great. Anxiety was a horrible challenge at that time. I was on medication and so forth. Aside from driving through the desert when it was 125 degrees, on the drive, they're asleep in the car.
It's a dry heat.
I know. They're in the car asleep. I am calculating the entire way. I knew every gas station. I knew every place to get water. When we got to San Diego, I literally had, and I it's serious, I had an escape strategy in case Kim Jong-un launched nuclear missiles toward LA. Because at the time, North Korea was threatening all this stuff. Yeah. And so I had a plan. I knew how fast we had to get out, everything. Like, that was where I was. Now, I'm able to say to myself, Kim Jong-un is most likely not going to attack San Diego while we just happen to be there. But when I wake up at 3 a.m. because I hear a loud thump through the walls of the house, I have to go investigate. And we have, so for any listeners, we do have weapons and we have cameras all over the house outside, and I'm able to see your stupid ass walking.
The floor is electrified.
And I've still got that lightsaber, and it's one of those really nice ultra sabers, and I will beat your ass with it. So while I apologize doing it,
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry as I hit you in the face.
So sorry.
And I'm
totally taking the onus.
I would make
the onus of this entire action.
I would make the lightsaber sound effect with my own mouth instead of letting the device do it for me. Anyway,
I see, and I think the first logical step of trying to break that thought process is going, Kim Jong-un may launch nuclear weapons at San Diego while we're there. There is nothing I can do about it.
You are absolutely right. And that's the advice of my therapist. Like how you can't control, you are worrying about things you cannot control. And the thing that I tell myself, when my father passed away, I'm one of those people that, like, I put my emotions on hold during crisis, and I become, in a way,
super healthy. Super healthy.
I'm sensing that you're using sarcasm here instead of praising me for wonderful mental health practice.
Yeah, well, take it how you want.
To me, like I become Optimus Prime. I must lead. I must protect. I must do whatever. You know, my family had been through the ringer, and everybody, you know, one by one they had left, and you know, siblings took my mother home and so forth. And somebody had to stay there until the funeral home could come and pick up his body.
Sure.
And they were going to prepare his body, and then he was flown to where he was buried, the state that he was buried in. I just said, I'll stay here. So I stood in the room with my father's body covered in a blanket that my his stepmother had made for him, and just stood guard over him. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I literally said out loud, "Time is precious, and it must be spent wisely." And it was like this divine wisdom. So now, when I talk myself off the ledge, so to speak, at 3:00 in the morning, I tell myself, your resources, your mental energy is a resource. You are spending it right now creating things that aren't real. Yeah. You could be spending that resource right now sleeping, dreaming of happy things, playing a video game, cooking breakfast, making coffee, going to work. Do you want to spend your resource on phantoms, or do you want to spend your resource because time is precious and it must be spent wisely? That is the cycle that I repeat like a mantra, and it breaks it, and I'm able to come out of it. And because I'm able to do that, when we go to San Diego again and take 2 kids, I'm going to be nervous that I'm going to be more nervous that the kids are going to do something stupid like, "Look, Dad, I found a jellyfish," or whatever, right? Instead of worrying about nuclear weapons. And And that's probably when we'll get attacked. And then I'll be like, "I knew it."
But here's the thing. It's kind of twofold. One, so I was always brought up by my dad as, you're the guy, the man of the house fixes things that are broken, right? That are broken, like mechanical things, like man things, right? So I try to do that a lot. I have never experienced such a freeing feeling as the moment I realized I'm not good at that. I'm just, there's some basic things that I can do. I put our dishwasher in last night. Like, I can do basic stuff like that. But when it comes down to an actual project, I'm not good at it. There's nothing I can do about it. I need to hand it off to somebody else. And immediately, the first time I was like, I'm a failure. And then I'm like, or I make really good money. I can pay somebody to do that. And then this is the twofold part. And then I can spend that other time that I would have been doing that, getting frustrated, getting angry, fucking up my house and making it cost way more money. I now have free time, and I can use that free time to do something I like doing. So what if you wake up in the middle of the night because Taken is happening, and also Keanu Reeves is outside in your driveway. So you wake up because that's happening and you can't go back to sleep. Why don't you play a video game then? If you're going to be awake anyway, you might as well use it to do some of those things that you feel like you're stealing time away from to do. You're awake anyway.
So I hear you. And my answer should be obvious. I do get up and sit in front of a computer. I watch tutorials on marketing, on Google AdWords, on business strategy.
Dummy. You can do that tomorrow.
And I think about playing a video game. I think about working on the board game that I've been developing for 4 years. And it's at this stage, this is how fucked up my view is of the great David Byrd and my celebrity. The mark that I think I'm going to be able to leave on the world, besides being the dad of 2 amazing children, is leaving a board game behind. Not my career, not my artwork, nothing, a board game. Because this is a game I want to play. Mm-hmm. And some of the best video games out there are ones created by a small team of people who go, we just wanted to make a game that we wanted to play. Mm-hmm. We didn't set out to be rock stars. Mm-hmm. And I'm not setting out to be a rock star. But instead of spending time at 3 a.m. working on my board game, I'm working on my business. And I've told my wife this, and this is true, and I welcome your input, my friend. I've told my wife, I said, once I hit $100,000 again with the business, I'll be able to rest.
So when you're spending, I mean, that's a great goal. I would love to make $100,000 as well. So I'm not going to poo-poo that goal at all. But so after you've spent your sleepless night that you're having because your brain is lying to you,
yes,
as what happens with mental illness, right? As you've spent your sleepless night toiling away at your computer, doing something you don't particularly enjoy out of a sense of obligation.
Yes.
When you wake up the next morning, how does that make you feel?
Like shit.
Yeah. Okay. So if you could wake up the next morning somewhat refreshed because you did a thing that you enjoyed doing, and you could have a little bit more patience for your kids and your wife, if you could have a little bit more joie de vivre upon going to the studio because you were able to just kind of carve out a place in the night that you're going to be awake anyway. Yep. And then you can watch that same video at the studio if you want tomorrow. How would that make you feel?
Worse.
That doesn't make any sense, David.
And it's true. And here's why. My father was a great man. He had his flaws, of course, and I very rarely speak about them. The one that I speak about the most to just a very select few people is you talk about visions as a child. One of my visions that I constantly have in my head is him shaking his index finger and saying, you need to learn responsibility. That, would often come because I didn't mow the yard because I was too busy playing Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for the 100th time playthrough, right? Or drawing a comic book or doing anything but my responsibilities. When I wake up in the middle of the night and I were to sit down and play a video game and I go upstairs to see my kids, I would be miserable. I would be mean. I would be bad because I was being irresponsible. But when I wake up middle of the night, I do some Google AdWords research, some marketing practices, write some notes down on my OneNote for a strategy for the next campaign. And then I'm dead ass tired when I go upstairs. I am able to instantly be happy dad because I was working. I was providing. I was doing my responsibility.
Are you happy, David?
No.
Okay. So I love your dad. Great dude. Would give the shirt off his back to anybody or 12 pounds of crab legs, whatever.
At the bowling alley.
Who knows more about responsibility for you, your dad or your therapist, your wife, and your kids?
Yeah. I hear
responsibility for you. And if you're not a happy David, you're not going to be a happy dad. You're not going to be a happy businessman. You're not going to be any of those things. And your therapist is absolutely 100%, 1000% right. You need to carve out time for you. Bethany is right. You need to carve, because by carving time out for you, you are carving time out for them.
So my therapist, again, an incredibly talented individual. We had this discussion and it didn't come out. It wasn't like the inciting question that started the session. It was born out of it. But because I had identified it before I realized what I was saying, essentially what I identified was if I were to die, all of my thoughts center on my poor children and they won't have their dad to protect them and grow up and teach them and my wife and all these struggles and whatever. And he finally said, but what about you? Like, you're going to be sad.
Right.
That everything you didn't get to do, that never enters into my mind, ever. That is how I know that there is something fundamentally wrong in how I view the world, how I view responsibility, which is another reason why I nuked my career from orbit, because I could not honorably look people in the eye and say, I trust what I do, because I'm so screwed up that the thought of don't get me wrong, and I have fantasies about this, and I go with me on this. It's not as naughty as it sounds. when my father was sick, and I would drive back and forth from Phoenix to Iowa for over a year, there was this little town in Oklahoma that I had to go through that Google navigated me through. And it's a little town square. There's a train that goes through, gaggle of houses. There was a Casey's there. And I would stop and get pizza because I love Casey's pizza. And I would have this fantasy for the first couple of years of anxiety after my son, during pregnancy or first child, and then after he was born, that I could just go to that town, buy a little house, get a job making pizza at Casey's, and disappear. And nobody would ever know. And I could just leave the world behind. And it was like an ASMR safe haven of just wanting to live in that world because nobody needed me. And I wasn't responsible to anybody but me. And what that would be like, again, to be that person that, and even before my son, you know this, I would wake up every morning, make a pot of coffee, sit down at my desk and edit a picture for an hour. Mm-hmm. Not because I was paid to do it, not because I had to do it, because I loved doing it and I practiced my art.
Right.
I don't do that now. To sit down, when I come to my studio, it is murder. And I've tried it and it drives me nuts to sit here and open up a picture and just edit it for fun because it's a waste of time. I have work to do. I have responsibilities. People need me.
They need you to edit for fun. They do. I mean, it took me a long time to understand that too. And Jenny pushed and pushed. And she's like, every time that I've said I'm going to give up podcasting, or every time that I've said I'm going to give up photography, right, or every time I'm like, hey, I'm going to sell my cameras, I'm going to sell my Xbox, whatever. She's like, well, then what are you going to do? Like, well, I'm going to be responsible. But what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like you need something, and you already have this stuff. It's not like you're going to go out and it's like you have to go out and buy it. I'm like, oh boy, she does not look at my Amazon enough. And it's like, then what are you going to do? And I think right now you're at that spot of you've jammed yourself up so much. You need to start figuring out what you're going to do.
And I hear you. And again, the blessing of an overactive imagination that I would rather live in that world than living in reality. My mind is always creating ideas. I haven't discussed this with you, but this is an idea that I am 100% doing because it is my, come hell or high water, my fulfillment of a responsibility, which is to do what my therapist and you and my wife and others have told me. So I've got an idea for, just go with me on this. I've got an idea for
I'm excited now. Now I'm excited.
I've got an idea for a new YouTube channel.
Oh boy.
I haven't published a video in over 3 years to that channel, and I just got about 75 subscribers last month. And I haven't.
You know what? Go fuck yourself, sir.
Sorry, dude. Sorry. So sorry.
Jesus.
So sorry. I've lost my AdSense.
I know what you do do for fun. You minimalize Zach. That's what you do for fun.
So
you make Zach feel like a. Yes, you are. Yes.
So apparently, is your height an even number or an odd number?
My height?
Yeah, your height.
It'd be an even number.
Oh,
well, it depends. Are you going by foot and inches or inches?
Or are we going by the imperial system or the metric system?
I guess it just depends. If like my initial answer to you is even, because I would say 5'6". 6 would be an even number.
You're killing my joke, dude. I was saying essentially that I'm an odd number because I'm 5'8", and you must be an even number 4 foot because you certainly aren't 6. So anyway.
I don't know why you did that, but it's mean.
Yeah, because I'm trying to keep up with the comedy here. Because you are really funny, and that's true. So I have an idea that I will tell you about offline because I'm actually going to go ahead and do it, and I would welcome your opinion about the YouTube channel. But it requires me to go spend time in the mountains, which these Colorado mountains are. I always said I wanted to retire here, and it requires me to go into the mountains. Spend 3 or 4 days by myself with my Jeep Cherokee once I get it back, once they find a fucking transmission for it, and then use my skills as an artist, as a creative, as a photographer, as a videographer, and be able to create something that I have taken great comfort in during my worst moments of anxiety over the years. And I will tell you about it offline. So I am trying to practice.
So you're going to tell me about it. You're going to ask for my opinion so that you cannot listen to any of it. Got it.
You and my friend Bill Hull should talk to each other. My friend Bill, is an incredibly intelligent human being for a lot of different things, but also he has a great amount of expertise in corporate America, how business works and so forth. He was very high up with a couple of companies over his career. At his recent 40th celebration of his 20th birthday, I got a shirt that was the Webster's Dictionary of ask hole.
Yeah.
And it said essentially that I'm going to ask you questions that I have no intention of following what you tell me to do. And I wore it at his birthday because I'm famous for asking him advice and then being like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
That's not for me.
And then,
not for me, thanks.
And as a matter of fact, I actually just talked to him yesterday because I had a wonderful meeting with another person that I admire greatly in this industry, who essentially told me, hey, some of the challenges you have in your business right now in Denver, you are 100% going against the grain because you're following what other people have told you to do. Your ideas, your instincts were spot on. You should be following it. And I called Bill and I'm like, guess what? So-and-so said this. What do you think? And he's like, I've told you this 100 fucking times. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you think? And he's like, okay, sounds like a good idea. Great. Can't wait to see you do it. I'm like, I'm going to do it this time, Bill. I believe in me.
It's exciting because it's a new person. They're shiny.
Yeah. But first I got to get the stationery and I'm going to work on the logo and then the colors.
I got to watch at least 6 YouTube videos that'll tell me the same thing, but then I'm going to find some minuscule part of them that I don't like. So I'm going to discount everything that they've said because I didn't like the color palette to their back fucking wall because I'm David Byrd and goddamn it, I can't be happy.
Okay, but okay, for real. Like, and you've got to keep this into the show. Tell me that it does not make me an asshole human being that when I'm watching a YouTube video, in the first 60 seconds, if they're like, hey, everybody, this is David Byrd, and I'm so excited to... Oh, wait, let me open Photoshop real quick. Okay, so today we're going to learn about... At that point, I'm like, shut the fuck up! Get off YouTube, you piece of shit!
It's like, did someone come in and start recording you as a surprise?
Pretty much.
Like you knew what you were here to do, right? You could have had it.
Yeah,
No, 100%. 100%.
Drives me bananas.
Or people that talk about... They'll talk about something completely unrelated. Or they'll walk you through a process of like, go to your system tray and find Photoshop. Like, no shit. You think I'm looking like I'm looking to find out how to do frequency separation? I don't know how to open Photoshop. Yeah. But see, now you made me mad, David. Now you've got me all wound up.
Sorry.
Okay.
So when I was 7.
So I'm going to ask you a question. I feel like we have more than covered the idea of what failed and surprised you that it failed.
Sure.
I feel like give me something that succeeded that surprised you.
Oh boy. My teaching career.
Yeah.
Both at the conferences and the first workshop that I ran in Phoenix that you came down to. Yeah. I was floored. I was at a conference. I took a leap of faith and said, there's X amount of seats, and the first half of the seats are this price point that was just under $1,000, and the other half is above $1,000. And before I could finish the speech, I sold out the tickets, the cheaper tickets, and then I sold a few more after the higher price. Yeah. Honestly, children. Yeah. I didn't want to be a dad, and I was an uncle when I was 10 years old. When my friends are out figuring out the difference and exploring the difference between boys and girls, I was changing Pampers and watching Beauty and the Beast. And as a teenager, I knew that through my father and through the type of human being that I am, that if I became a dad, I would cease to be David. I would always be dad. And that I knew I would always worry about these kids until I was in the ground. And that's how very much I feel. And you can have a whole show with my wife if you'd like, because she'll tell you everything. That I fought against it, and that wonderful woman endured a lot of bullshit from me. I told her my son will hate me. They won't like me. I'm this, I'm that. And my son, his world revolves around his mother, his imagination, and me. Yes, you told me the same, 100%. But I couldn't see it. I couldn't believe it because of responsibility. I knew the baggage that I carried into that event and the tremendous responsibility it is to be a parent. And I just could not see risking that over that little life,
Do you, and this is a question probably should have been asked a half an hour ago because it's loaded and I know that.
Beauty of editing.
What's that? The beauty of editing. Yeah. David, do you think you're smarter than everyone else?
No, not at all.
Then start listening.
I hear you.
No. Yeah, you're right. You do hear me. Listen. Not to me. I'm a terrible example.
No, I know.
But to the other people.
This goes back to something that's wonderful advice from you. For me as a teacher to be able to look at somebody else, give them information, and then be able to say, but it's on you now, and walk away and advocate responsibility in my head. It's in reverse. You can give me all the advice in the world. Am I going to come after you and knock on your door when it's wrong? No, I'm not. I'm responsible. So people can say, no, David, it's not going to happen that way. No. And I look at you and go, you can talk at me. That's the key. And I mean this with respect. This is something that I learned that was very valuable to me. A lot of people talk at me. Very few people talk to me and with me. And you talk with me. There are many people that talk at me. Oh, no, it starts just like that.
Right.
Let me tell you, hey, you, Zach, let me tell you my worst fear that I've been agonizing over. And then, oh, no. And I've been dismissed like that my entire life.
Right.
Even endeavors of, I believe I can fly. I believe I can do it. Oh, no. No, Icarus, just sit on the ground. You are like, yeah, you can fly, but here's what's keeping you from doing it. And that very rarely happens for me. So I have spent too long with too many important people in my life trying to defend and justify why I feel the way I do before I can even be at a place to accept the advice and apply it, because they're right. You are right. But I've spent so long trying to prove that I have the right to be who I am, especially in a world of hyper creativity. Mm. And I mean this with all due respect to my wonderful father. He grew up in a world where this is a personal story that I don't mean to say to disparage his memory. But when I was in high school and our family was struggling financially, I wanted to go to Hollywood, come hell or high water. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to Hollywood. And when I finally got into college, I went 2 years after I graduated from high school. I get in and I immediately pursue a theater degree. And my father tells me, you need to also get a teaching degree to be a school teacher. And then when I got out of the job, and I wanted to move to Chicago and become an actor, he told me, and I'm in my early 20s, he told me, you also need to get your truck driving license. Because they make great money.
It's a weird connection.
And it's a secure job. Yeah. And while you can pursue your other goals, and he would be encouraging, you pursue your other dreams. Pursue your dreams, but you need to do this first because this is safe. I would spend so much time, and he was the leader of our household, defending, but Dad, I want to do this. Yeah. And then I would encounter people. If I would have encountered a Mr. Miyagi early on in my career, things would have been vastly different. But I encountered people that I strongly believe, and whether this is arrogance or not, I don't give a shit. Because to me, it's real. I encountered people who went, there's something special about you. You're really gifted. I'm going to put you under my foot and keep you there. Mm-hmm. And my problem was I trusted them because I was raised, everybody is innocent until proven guilty, even if they're standing on the other side of my door with truck straps about to break in and kill us. I couldn't see the forest for the trees. And unfortunately, I found my way too often into the tutelage of people who were dishonest, wrong, bad, and I learned too late. Mm-hmm. And it created scars that now when I come to work, I have more, I wear a suit of armor that is so heavy to carry that it's stifling the creativity inside of me. And I would give anything to be that kid again. Not a child, but to be that spirit again, to be that creative again. And I have not found my way to it.
And the bad thing about that is, again, like I'll preface it by saying, I love your dad. Like he was always super awesome to me.
He was a great man.
That was terrible advice. That was not advice that fit. That was a shoe intended for a completely different person. That did not fit your situation at all.
So let me say this, and please keep this there, because he, like me, had an incident where he dared to fly higher than the sun, and it failed miserably. And it devastated him, and he never recovered. He 100% was clinically depressed, but he was a proud man of his time.
Mm-hmm, sure.
If John Wayne and Andy Griffith could have a love child, that was my dad. So there was no way he could ever admit to anybody that he was fallible,
right? Because
he had to be protective. His mother passed away when he was 12, and he was the eldest. He had two younger sisters, and his father, my grandfather, worked in the coal mines. He was gone, and unfortunately, he was never there. My dad had to take care of his sisters and process the grief of losing his mother when he was 12. He became a protector. He spent too much time in my life telling me, don't fly too close to the sun. And not because he didn't want me to fly higher than him. Not at all. It was he was trying to keep us safe.
Right.
I live a life now where because of my same scars that he has, my same failures, I'm trying to keep my family safe from me, and my lack of responsibility, so to speak.
But yeah, because you're so irresponsible, David. You're a piece of shit.
I am, dude. I am. I'm thinking about.
I meant
don't
more.
know.
I just meant more the message of like the truck driver, like of all the things, that just it's not. It would not fit. There's no way. There's no way you're ever going to become a truck driver. It's just not going to happen. Now, a video store manager. At the time, those were never going to go away, right? Those were always going to be there, I mean,
VHS and DVD.
That was far more realistic. It was a steady income. It was insurance. It was all the things that you needed at the time. That makes more sense. Working at Wells Fargo, that makes more sense. Yep. A truck driver, that was a big miss. He swung and he missed on that one.
Yeah,
we can't get him 100%. We can't be 100%.
Right, that's true.
You could, but that was a big swing and a miss. It just doesn't make any sense. So from now on, you're going to be the bandit. From now on, that's the only thing I'm going to refer to you as.
I'm in a hot pursuit. Jackie Gleason was. Oh my God, I love that movie.
All right, so. The thing here, David, is that it is my sincerest hope that these conversations will continue to be as open, honest, and vulnerable as our conversation has been today. So I sincerely appreciate you being willing to come on today and talk about everything, because I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that our society refuses to acknowledge that people are human anymore.
Yep.
The lack of humanity that we see in our society is just broken. And just the idea from when Tony and I started this show was always to just show how everyone is human at the base, whether it's an industry professional, whether it's someone with a hobby farm, whether it's someone who has been in the military, whatever, that everyone is at their core a human being that has struggles, trials, tribulations, interests, loves, hates, all the things. So thank you for being so open and honest with us today, because I think without that type of conversation, there's absolutely no point in doing this show.
I agree. You have achieved something in my mind, again, using a phrase that's important to me. You are showing people that their perception of your guest's reality is vastly different from their actual reality. For me, to hear people that to me are literally celebrities talk about being human, the human joys they have, the human struggles they have, not, oh yeah, when I did this amazing project, I'm so amazing. No, they're like, dude, I got to pick up my kids. I got to go to salsa practice. Like, I'm tired. I'm worried too. Like, they're human. And it changed my reality. It didn't necessarily change my reality, perception of their reality. It made me go, my God, they're just like me. They're no different than me. And that has such incredible value that I applaud what you and Tony have created, and I hope to see it continue.
Thank you. And that truly means a lot to me. I've always looked to you for creative guidance, and we've always kind of been at the same basic places in our lives, but at different levels, at different points. And it's always been nice to have you to bounce creativity and creative ideas off of. So I very much appreciate that. I think it means more to me than you would ever know that you would say something that overwhelmingly positive about this, because this is different to me than any other project I've ever worked on. And it was different even before Tony's passing. Like, it was something that I chose to take a risk on. I'd never taken a risk before, because it's really easy to do a podcast in your basement. It's a lot less easy to decide, I'm going to spend money on this. I'm going to travel the country for this. I'm going to make some sacrifices to make this creative thing that will never make me a dime. Let's be honest. It'd be great if it would, but it's never going to. So I decided to make this something different. And I hope that eventually that comes to fruition. Before we leave, like, things got fucking heavy in here, man. Like,
yeah,
and I love it, but no, don't apologize. I love it. I love it because I think it's important, like, that to be able to, like, bust each other's balls, tell jokes and crack wise and be silly, but at the same time, really get into some serious stuff that bores down to who you are as a person. I said, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about your most recent project, your new endeavor, Legend.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So my brand and studio in Denver is called Legend by David Byrd. Right there was a wonderful example of the challenges of this business. I did not want to ever call any of the work that I've done as photographer David Byrd Photography or anything of that nature, because it's not about me. It's about the clients and the people that We all work together.
Oh, you're adorable.
My original brand was called Dream State Photography. My second brand was called Reality Reimagined. And this one is called Legend by David Byrd. This is primarily...
You're finally getting it, David. You're finally getting it.
Because I was browbeat by people. And like you, I was spending a lot of money to restart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose to follow who I perceived as my betters for some of those elements of guidance. This brand right now, the genre that I focus on is boudoir. But really what I'm learning as I'm exploring and developing this business, this brand is about storytelling. Yes, it involves sensual photography. And why I chose that, I've never wanted to be a boudoir photographer. And I have many wonderful friends who are amazing, very financially successful boudoir photographers. I didn't want to do it. I've certainly photographed my share of sensual imagery, but I didn't want to. My sensual imagery was speaking to what I found sensual and erotic as a heterosexual male. And I've taught this, and go with me on it. I teach that boudoir is akin to a great horror film. The best horror films are the ones where you never see the monster till the very end, and your imagination builds so much. And the same way of shooting a series that is a human being in various states of undress, it's about, we used to tell our wedding clients when we offered boudoir long ago, that I don't care what, you could wear a t-shirt that's covered in gravy stains and holes and greasy, but if your eyes communicate sensuality and power and story that I can follow, then we're off to the races. So Legend is about that. A lot of my work over the years has been about storytelling. I teach storytelling and how to access it using our background in theater to be able to teach photographers how to access story. When I decided to return to selling portraits to clients instead of doing commercial work and all the other things that I've done, I said, I'm not going to do high school seniors, which I specialized in. I will never photograph another wedding as long as I live. And I don't want to do headshots or anything like that. I don't want to do high volume work. And I said, boudoir is one I can get behind because the money should be spent before they walk through the door, because nobody should want cheap boudoir photography. Speaking to the battle scars earlier, nobody's going to walk in and say, I love your work, I wanted to come here, but I was obligated to go to the shit boudoir photographer downtown who charged me $3,000 and is a predator.
Right.
I should be able, with this genre, to reach a goal. And this is important to me, and it is the goal for Legend. I should be able to reach the goal, which is to be sought out, to be hired as their artist. My client will hire me as their artist, not their portrait photographer. Right. They trust me as an artist to create vision with them, not to take, I want you to just do whatever you think. No, I tell every client, you need to tell me not what picture you want, what pose, what lighting. You need to tell me why you're here, what you want, what's your story. And then I'm going to help you find ways to access it. And then we're going to create it on set. And you should be proud when you walk out of here spending $3,000, not because you got portraits taken, you got art created for you.
Right.
And that was the goal. With any business, regardless of how noble your intent is, you have to navigate all the muddy waters of business. And that's how to make people feel comfortable in 6 seconds or less, to stay for another 6 seconds on the website or the ad or whatever. Mm. And then also knowing there's a wonderful photographer in our industry who's an incredibly talented individual named Joel Grimes. And when I first saw him speak, the first thing that he said, and I turned to my wife and looked at her, and like, if we could have been shining lights of joy and happiness, that we had just had somebody affirm to us that all of your pain is for a reason. His first opening graphic said 8 times. And he said, shoot market, shoot market, shoot market, because it takes 8 times for a client to convert. They have to see your work 8 times. When you're cold calling a business, you got to cold call them 8 times on average before they'll convert. So shoot market, always create, always market, because that person is silently engaging. And when they hit the 8th time, that's when they answer the ad. That's when they hit the contact form. That's a really hard thing to hold on to when you're watching the money drain and it's not coming in as fast as it's draining. Hoping silently people are following. That's why when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking up the merits in 2024 of, do you run Google ad campaigns? Do you do TikTok? Is Facebook dead? Like, how do you do all these things to convince people that what you do is not just worth their money, but that it is a great artistic experience to engage in? And that's what I do. Thus far, I've had a blast because some of the folks I've worked with, they come in expecting the word empowerment. I've always wanted to do boudoir because, sometimes it's the naughty reasons. But a majority of the time, it's because they've had a milestone in their life where they need to be reminded that they have value. But they think they're going to come in and do some yoga poses in their skivvies and then get some nice little pictures with natural white light, because that's what boudoir is to them, right? It's that vanilla, so to speak. When they come in here, by the time this experience is done, and this is not my word, this is what's been told to me by my clients, it's a transformative experience because it's about storytelling. When I photograph people on set, I treat them like a director would an actor. I give them a scene to play. I don't say, no, put your hand here. No, move your elbow a little bit there. Okay, now look at me with those sultry bedroom eyes. Ooh, you're so sexy. Ooh. I don't do any of that. I tell them one of my go-tos that is so wonderful to watch as a photographer and as a human being. I tell them, and I have a strategic lighting pattern. I know how I'm going to frame it and compose it. I'm going to get my tight middle wide to try to sell. But I have them lay on their back, female, laying on their back, backlighting, creating some nice shadows. I describe the action first. I say, I want you to take your index finger of your dominant hand, and I want you to touch your forehead and go down your forehead, down the bridge of your nose, touch your lips, touch your chin, all the way down your throat, between your ladies, and then let it drift away. And they'll do it, and they'll do it in the most mechanical, medicinal, boring way. And I say, okay, great. We're going to take that again. And I literally use the word take. I don't say, oh, we're going to do that again, or oh, that was good, but I say, we're going to take that again. This time, mean it. And I say, close your eyes. Remember the first time you were touched that way. And they kind of smile and giggle, and I'm like, I know. And I'm like, but now, commit. Remember what it felt like. Where was your excite point? Was it on your sternum when they're between the ladies? Was it on your lips? Where do you want to be touched? Remember it and do it. And they'll take a breath with me, and I literally say action. They do it, and like that, I've got pictures they've never had before. The experience is transformative. They got to remember their own value, remember their own passion, their own power. And I captured it, and when I sell $3,000 worth of photos to them, and they walk out, I feel like $1 million because I made a difference. I told their story. I helped them tell their story. And that's what Legend is about. But right now, it's struggling, being completely transparent and honest. We moved to Denver in April, and the business really went online in October because we had our daughter in June of 23. And I have been so focused on the business aspects of it because the creative aspects are already in the can, so to speak, for me. And right now, I'm in that realm of how do you educate a market that vanilla ice cream is boring and they should go for the rocky road? How do you educate them that a heterosexual male is safe to come in and be photographed by? How do you educate them that, yes, if you want a great transformative experience, it's going to cost more than $300?
Volume and testimonials.
Yes. So one of my go-tos I'm holding up on camera is a gift certificate that is beautifully made with beautiful stationery and beautiful envelopes, beautiful little wax sticker seals that has an L in it for Legend. And every client that comes in here is given a gift certificate that gives somebody a free session. No free anything beyond that, but free hair and makeup, free session. And once they come in and have their transformative experience, and the person who gave that gift certificate, they get to come back and have a second transformative experience, a second time to tell their story. Because I think there's no better way than somebody who walks out of Disneyland and says, my God, this was amazing. You need to go. Because that starts the first time they're engaging, and then I got to wait till number 8 before they book.
Right.
And in the meantime, I got Pampers to buy and food to put on the table, and anxiety to quell with being successful financially again.
Well, and you know how the internet works. The more times you post things on the internet, the more attention it gets because you're consistent. So that's where the volume comes in. The testimonials are the part that make it safe for people. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. Yeah. And the advice I just got from a dear friend of mine, a person that I look up to, which was one of those moments that to show you, again, as a human being, how far I've strayed from the course, the path, how I've forgotten to use my wings as Icarus to fly. I have been so focused on social media ads and learning everything that you can learn, which is a never-ending Pandora's box of a hellscape that I'd never want to be involved in, right?
No, and they're completely unreliable.
But they work
because you can't trust the stats though that they give you. Like
right,
you don't know until you
they
know.
work,
yeah.
And they are a silver bullet because my betters, I've seen their financials and they work. However, My friend that I was talking to, who is a photographer and teacher and educator and wonderful human being, she asked me, she goes, I went to your business page for Legend and it's dead on Facebook. And I said, yeah. I said, because the people that I'm talking to and getting advice from and mentoring with, their Facebook pages are dead. And Facebook's kind of dead now. Like nobody engages. And she's like, who doesn't engage with Facebook? And immediately I said, well, teenagers don't engage. And she went, are you hiring teenagers? And I said, no. And I said, but that's old information. The kids are on the Snapchats and the TikToks now. They're not on the Facebooks, right? Only old white people are. And then I went, wait a minute. I am targeting 28 to 55-year-olds in all my social media ads, but I don't post a single thing to my Facebook page because I was told by my betters it doesn't work for them. And then I said, but I have blog posts. And she went, yeah, I saw that on your website. Your last blog post was 3 months ago. And I was like, well, I've been focusing on the ads. And she's like, so people, the only way they can engage with you, the first time they engage, that 1 of 8, like Joel Grimes, they're engaging with an ad that says, hurry now, act now, buy now, pressure, pressure, pressure. Instead of going, I had so much fun telling this person's story. Look at this beautiful artwork. And the moment she said that to me, my jaw hit the floor. And I saw my father's finger going, you need to learn responsibility. I went, my God, what am I doing? I built a whole career that I torpedoed from orbit off of sharing everything on social media. And more importantly, one of the greatest consistent compliments I always get from people is when you post to social media a picture, your artwork, you don't say something which I despise, like, check out this killer shot. So amazing. I used hashtag Canon, hashtag list lens, hashtag whatever. I say why I did it. Why the person brought it. I explain the art and everybody loves that. And then I went, this is a godsend. I've known this for a long time. And I threw that right out the door because I was so focused at 3 o'clock in the morning on learning Google AdWords.
What about if you treat it like journaling?
That's You're an intelligent human being because that's precisely what she just told me and literally used that word. And she said, can you not journal every day on your business Facebook page, not just the artwork you're doing, but the business itself? Be transparent, just like I did years ago by reaching out to my clients and saying, hey, we're excited. We want to build some business and keep going. And you can help us by share the journey.
Yeah.
So
hold on. I'm going to let him out because I want you to finish this thought. And then I'll think I'd tell him to be quiet if somebody was trying to break in my house. No, I wouldn't. I'd be like, fucking bark.
That's a big dog.
Yeah,
Sasha was
big boy.
She was
Big boy.
Anyway.
He's a big boy.
Yeah.
So
yes, that's precisely what I had this meeting Friday night. And then yesterday I had to have lunch with friends, and then I have this today with you. And I chose to take the day off today because it's 60 degrees here and there's a lot of work to do in the house. Normally I take Mondays off. But tomorrow I'm getting here at the crack of dawn, like I'm awake at the crack of dawn. And I'm instead of trying to capitalize a little bit more sales for Valentine's Day of 2024, I am wise enough to know, don't keep kicking the can down the road. Stop, take a breath, reset, and then go forward again. And this time doing something like this, I told my wife yesterday, I said, there is a instinct, there's a feeling. There was a TV show, I don't think it survived 2 seasons, and it's not relevant, but the point here in the TV show was in the world of these characters, there's a door that will appear when it's their time to transition. They're a ghost, a vampire, a ghost, and a young woman who can see them. They all live together. Being human. Yes. Sam Witwer.
Yeah, I made it several seasons.
It did.
And it was actually it was a remake of a show from England, from Britain. It was
right.
An Americanization of it. Yeah. No, it made it. I want to say like 3 or 4 seasons at least.
When I saw that show, I watched the first 2 seasons, I believe. And in the first seasons, when they reveal the MacGuffin of the door, and when you see that door, you got to walk through it, and that's like your one shot to get into eternity. And when I saw that, I quickly remembered, and this was years ago, and I had written a story when I was a kid, because I was so convinced that if I could just push on the veil that was invisible in this reality, if I just pushed enough, I would open the veil to another world. That's the world I lived in my imagination for years and years and years. I was convinced that if I could just believe hard enough, I could fly. When I talked to her the other day, my friend in the business, And I guess I could call her a mentor because she's offered that to me now for free, which was like, I told her I can't. She gets paid money to do this. She said she wanted to do it for free. And I'm like, I can't honorably accept that. And finally, I took my own advice that I had learned in not being cheap and said, yes, I will go ahead and take your gift. Thank you.
Sometimes people just enjoy doing things.
That's literally what she told me. She said, it will make me feel good. She's like, I don't offer this to everybody, but she and I have known each other for a while. And she was like, I want to see you succeed. And I was like, oh my God, you're like me. Like you're a nice human being. Jeez. Like, okay, I'll take it up, even though it sucks. I will give my shirt off my back to anybody. But when somebody wants to give it to me, I'm like, fuck no. Like, I'll give you some money. Right. So long story short, when I talked to her a couple days ago, I saw that door again. It's not open. I saw the door.
And you got excited.
I did. I got excited in a way that I haven't felt in a long time.
I know that feeling. I feel the same way about this.
Right on, right on. Because there's something in the ether that tells you this is worthwhile and it has value. So don't lose it.
I think to bring it full circle, because I think this is an important distinction to make about Legend by David Byrd. that as a child, you immersed yourself in world building.
Yes.
In storytelling, right?
Yes.
In Boudoir, you found an idea for a market that it was no longer about cheesecake. It was about telling a story to make something sensual, not necessarily erotic,
right,
but sensual.
Yes. So
that not only would men find these images sensual, but women would too. And that they would see it as being, this is empowering, this is sensual, this is sexy, because I think it is. This isn't a thing that I'm doing for him. This is a thing that I'm doing for me, because David can build a story and he can make me feel a thing while we're doing this. And that thing will carry through to when they hang the photos, or they put them in a book, or they present them as a gift, or they keep them for themselves. It's no longer just a T&A presentation. It's no longer things aren't so great at home. Maybe if my husband can see my areola and my hair, big hair, and it's not a fucking glamour shot.
Yep.
It's an experience. And I can promise all 4 people who are hearing this right now, I can promise them that I've worked with David enough to know that the experience of shooting with him, it is an experience. It's fun. It's not even crafted. Like a lot of the stuff that happens when David shoots models or subjects, it's happy accidents. It's shit that just happens in the moment, and it's fun. What you're buying, you're not buying a photo. You're buying a few hours of your day where you just get to go do something fun, and then you also have proof that it happened.
Yes. Precisely.
You're buying the fucking roller coaster picture.
Yes.
Only these are in focus and they're not shot with a 3 megapixel camera, right?
And you don't look like somebody put a cattle prod up your tush.
Right, unless that's what you're into, unless that's what's erotic.
We don't photograph that here.
I don't know, unless that's what's sensual.
Not that kind of shoot.
Like maybe you don't actually photograph the cattle prod, but maybe the result. I don't know. Whatever you do is what you do. Okay, who are you, David, to tell these women
right.
that you will no longer empower them? That is a very patriarchal decision that you would be making right there, David. And I want you to slap that out of your own mouth right now.
And speaking to that element, one of the things that I have been working very diligent on for the past few months, and I'm saying this very respectfully and carefully because it's a topic that I think is important and I want to do it right. Instead of just photograph, because you think boudoir, you hear boudoir photography, you think of heterosexual women.
Yeah.
Assigned at birth female.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I don't, but that's because I'm more open-minded than you are, David.
So me trying to get down on your way down to your level, I've started opening my mind and setting up business practices, the right marketing. There's so many moving parts that goes into a business to do something right for a topic that I think is and a need in our society that is very important. Opening the door to say it's all based on you have a story to tell.
Right.
And your story may not be a C cup and Victoria's Secret lingerie. Your story may be a man that needs to, a heterosexual man, however whatever your sexual orientation is not relevant, but opening the door that transgender, non-binary, everybody who has got a story to tell, and it isn't about seeing the sensuality. It's about having power, having confidence, because to me, that is sensual. That is powerful. That is erotic to me.
Well, and the place that it always ends is what's sensual to them. Right. Like if you're telling a good story, it's not paint by numbers photography. And I kind of alluded to that, and I didn't purposely leave off because I think boudoir is for everybody. It really is. I mean, it's for everybody. I had been meaning to say something to you like, dude, you need to shoot more dudes.
Yes.
Like I really do. And that goes across the board. Like it seems like women like having their picture taken more than guys do, or they're more open to like various genres and stuff. But you need to shoot some beefcake, man. Like some dudes that are sensual, some dudes that are like going to sell you some underwear.
I have.
Good.
And I have. And the worst term in this photography genre is boudoir.
Oh, yeah.
Because the implication is you got to be a man and be something different. I have photographed men completely nude, and they're looking for a certain story to tell of their physical acumen and so forth. They're looking for sensuality and sexy. I've photographed men who come in wearing a suit, and they're holding a whiskey glass and a cigar because that's how they feel sexy and powerful. That's their story.
That's sexy as shit.
Straight up.
A woman in a power suit is sexy as shit. Whatever makes that person sensual is what is sensual. Prescribing to some kind of cookie cutter is how you get Sears Portrait Studio.
Yes. Is how you get glamour shots.
This is what you are going to get, and I promise you, if you buy a package, you are going to get something no one else will get because it is going to be you.
Correct.
It's going to be tailored to you. It is your story. Some of the poses may be similar because people's bodies move the same way.
Right.
But ultimately, when you used to go and see glamour shots, it was the same stupid pop collar. It was the same hairdo. It was the same like
feather boa,
soulless, dead face. You whether you're a guy, whether you're a girl, whether you're trans, whether you don't even prescribe to anything, you're gonna get however you are comfortable in front of that lens. I promise you, that's what you're gonna get. Because that's where David does his best work.
You are unique, and so are we.
I have seen David take photos of people that weren't comfortable. I think that's fair, right?
Sure.
Those photos don't look good.
Yes.
David now makes people comfortable. That's what he does really well. Yes, you are unique, and so is David's style and approach to everything. And that's why we've been friends for 25 years.
Right on. And thank you.
I don't know anybody like this idiot. I really don't.
I appreciate that. And to me, one of the buzzwords in marketing for boudoir is empowerment. And you just used it a moment ago.
Sure.
From the very beginning, even when I was working with my betters, setting up all the aspects of this business, I 100% said, I do not want to use the phrase, come in here and be empowered. And I say this in all the video content that my clients see, copy that's sent to them. I do not believe a human being can empower another. Only you can empower yourself. But this photography session is the catalyst. And that's what you have to bring. That's what you bring as my client. That's what you have to be prepared for. This isn't a portrait session. This isn't glamour shots. You are being given an opportunity for that door. And you can walk through that door and tell your story. And it's a beautiful and terrifying thing sometimes to tell your story and to live it and to be it and to walk out of here with a roller coaster set of pictures from it as proof that you did it is why I'm in business. And that makes me, I said to my wife as we were considering this, as I was considering this genre, and this is kind of my button end to what I'm doing right now for my work. I said to my wife, I can't do boudoir. We have children. They will never be able to come to my studio because they're going to walk in and see all these sexy photos. My son's going to bring all of his friends when they're 12 to daddy's studio every time because they get to see all these photos. And she goes, why can't they? And I said, because I'm not going to explain to my kids that their college fund is paid for because daddy shot smut. And she looked at me and said, if that's what you think, you have no business doing this job. And I saw the cast iron in her and I went, okay, what did I do? And she said, because You have an opportunity to teach your children body positivity, the value in beauty, the value in sensuality, and that dad has changed people's lives. That's why their college fund was paid for. The moment she said that, I was like, all right, I have an honorable goal. That's what I'm going to do. And it's been hell trying to get there, but it's one that I see the door and I'm getting ready to open it. And when I do, I will once again fly.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to me today, David. I miss you.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully I'll see you here in a month or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, buddy. I love you.
Love you too.
Tony Forsmark.